betrayed WCW.
What in the hell is he doing here? Monday Night Raw, Monday Nitro. He is broken.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Brett Steve Brett. The new world order, brother. Let's get this. We are at war.
All right, let's do this Nitro show.
They show the finish from last week after I rage quit. I missed Randy Savage screaming at Elizabeth in a hotel hallway.
Did you have any buffering?
A little.
I had none.
I did
Not
notice,
one.
I noticed last week it was horrible in the second half, or the last half hour of the show. Kind of the same thing here. I don't know if that means anything, and it wasn't nearly as bad this week. There was some, it was noticeable, but it wasn't a big deal.
I have one nitpick.
All right?
Who has Apple TV? Anybody?
No.
Yeah.
How come when you shut off the show, let's say halfway through, and you go back and it says continue watching,
Right.
and you click on it and it says start from beginning or continue watching,
Yes.
and you hit continue watching, and then it takes you to another screen that says continue watching or start from the beginning.
Right.
I'm like, I only said it 3 times. I chose it out of the continue watching area. I hit continue, and then you maybe hit continue again.
Really want to make sure that's what you want to do, Brian.
I know. Abort, retry, ignore. It's 2015. Go on, Vinny.
All right. So, yeah, sucks to be a guest at that hotel when Randy Savage is screaming at Elizabeth in your hallway and you're trying to get some sleep.
Sounds like me in Hawaii trying to do this show.
They also showed Harlem Heat regaining the tag titles from Public Enemy on Saturday night, saving us from an Outsiders Public Enemy match that would have been abominably bad.
I'm sad we're not seeing it. I'm not going to lie.
This led to the Nitro opener, Public Enemy versus Harlem Heat in a non-title grudge match.
The tag champions with no ring entrance.
Keep that in mind, by the way.
Yeah.
That becomes relevant in about an hour.
These jerseys that they made Public Enemy wear.
Ugh.
ECW, as much as I rant about Kevin Owens' gear, ECW was all about dudes buying their gear at Walmart. So Public Enemy comes to WCW and they make professional, colorful, fancy, generic jerseys. Killed the gimmick right there. Not that there was any hope for them with or without those jerseys.
They would have been huge with better jerseys.
Johnny Grunge wasn't selling his leg at all, even though the leg played into the finish, and he got his leg injured last week. And all I could think was, dude, you should just sell your leg all the time, because then you would have an excuse for sucking so bad.
Did you see him running the ropes and legit nearly tripping over Booker T?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Not Yokozuna or Big Daddy or Giant Haystacks. Booker T.
Well, you know.
His calf is really huge.
Yeah, he had a broad back.
So Sherry and Rob Parker were in love this week, for those who keep track of that kind of thing.
Which is nobody.
Yeah. They go to commercial, and they come back, not to the match, but Liz is backstage trying to go into Savage's locker room to talk to him, but he's not there. Then they go to the match. We got about 20, 30 minutes of chin locks and face locks. And then the NWO showed up in the stands, and Scott Hall cut a promo in which he called Harlem Heat hillbillies.
Yeah.
Which hills have you been billying around?
Well, you know.
He did redeem himself when he said it'd be scary at Halloween Havoc, and then went, ch-ch-ch-ah. It's a Friday the 13th reference.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
It was funny. More chin locks. The NWO got bored and left. Broke down into a 4-way, and Rocco went up top, but Parker shoved him off to a table, and the Heat whacked Grunge in the bad leg with a chair, and then laid the chair across his leg and came off the top rope onto it, and that was that.
You know, I learned on After Dark when I interviewed Aphrodite Jones that in some areas of the country, the Appalachians, hillbilly is in fact a very, very derogatory term.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
When I think of hillbilly, Harlem does not come to mind.
You don't think of
No.
Booker T?
No, nor Stevie Ray, or Houston for that matter.
Yeah.
A limousine arrived backstage, and Jeff Jarrett got out. It was trying to be a badass Jeff Jarrett in tight white jeans, leather jacket, and sunglasses with his blonde mullet.
With the sweeping bangs. The mullet with the sweeping bangs.
Yeah, it was really more
Oh my
long hair than
goodness.
a mullet, but it definitely had bangs. He looked very
1980s.
Nelson. Yeah,
Yeah. I can't live with.
I'll tell you
It's a
what he
great
looked
song.
like. I'm going to cut to the chase here a little bit, but Jeff Jarrett came out to wrestle in his outfit.
Yeah.
And Whitney's sitting there, and she goes, he's an Oompa Loompa.
Oh.
And I said, what? And she goes, Google Oompa Loompa.
I'm doing that right now.
Do it right now. All you have to do is Google Oompa Loompa and hit the image search and tell me what comes up.
Same hair.
Well,
and everything.
hey,
It's Jeff Jarrett.
Same hair and everything.
they have better tans.
Right.
That is true.
Something went wrong with their hair dye, but that outfit is it's pretty much what Jeff Jarrett had
Isn't
on.
that crazy? I didn't know what she was talking about, and as soon as I Googled it, that was the first thing that came
I
up.
knew what an Oompa Loompa was, but I never got past their hair and eyes, or hair and skin and eyebrows.
Sounds romantic.
Oh, it's not. It's not. Huh. Well, there you go.
How about that?
They showed Nick Patrick cutting a promo on Saturday night, vowing to bring law and order back to WCW. He fined Randy Savage $1 million for putting his hands on a ref. That would be himself.
By the way, who gave him the power to do this?
I don't know.
I don't know if it was real or not.
Do refs have like a union where they can
Not in wrestling.
lobby fines and such?
Between Nick Patrick's fine and the Horseman's briefcase full of money, Savage is going to be working for a long time.
Got a lot of debt to pay off.
By the way, when Nitro first started, we were always complaining that they would do things on Saturday night and then not show it on Nitro.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're showing a bunch of stuff on Nitro from Saturday night. And now all I can think is, clearly they feel they don't have enough time with 2 hours. Yeah. Craig, move your
So-
phone. It's feedback on your mic. Go ahead, Vinny.
I was making sure it was his, not mine. So Nick Patrick notes there was once an announcer who was spreading lies and rumors about him, and that guy's gone now. Did Gene get fired?
That's a good question. He is gone.
Diamond Dallas Page versus Jim Powers.
TDB called Eddie Burrito Boy.
Got a burrito boy.
That is even more offensive than Hillbilly.
It really is. He vowed to beat him in the Clash of Champions. And I had low hopes for this, but they did a perfectly fine 3-minute TV match.
DDP is weird because people were always really mad because he lived next door to Eric and he was Eric's buddy. And so he was always featured on the show. But the reality is, he was good. He had good matches. And who cares if he scripted his match or not? If you have a good match, great. Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat at Mania 3 was scripted bell to bell. Nobody complains about that match, but they all complained about DDP.
Page did in fact win with the diamond cutter out of nowhere. And he bullied Teddy Long for some good measure.
You're downplaying this bullying. Teddy Long is standing over Jim Powers, and DDP puts his foot on his ass, shoves, and Teddy Long goes right on his face.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
He was a jerk. Diamond Dallas Page was a jerk.
I laughed.
My son hasn't watched Nitro with me for months. And he comes out and he sees DDP and he goes, "Hey, that's the yoga guy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife came running in from the other room. "Hey, that's the yoga guy."
Yeah, that's how he's known nowadays.
Yeah.
He is famous for doing yoga.
Yeah. And my son's like trying to do the poses and such. Because him
Good.
and
That
him
I
and
would
the
like to see.
Him and the missus use it at the evening.
Huh,
There are
how
many
about
worse
that?
things a young boy could be doing.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true. Coke.
He's 9.
I'm watching Nitro. Second thing that came to my mind.
Well, on that note, surely coincidence, Mike today called out Randy Savage for an interview. Now, you recall last week he called Savage out for an interview, and Savage never showed, nothing came of it. Well, he calls out Randy Savage, and Savage just comes right out. Along with a Slim Jim race car driver who may have been that guy who liked the stapler in Office Space. Savage cut a promo on his behalf, and this was the oddest odd couple in the history of odd pairings.
Forget the pairing. Nick Patrick has just fined this man $1 million.
Yeah.
Randy Savage comes out, and all he's talking about is how his buddy here in the WCW car came in 10th
Yes.
in a race.
Yes.
10th!
And he
And
started
it's funny. Yeah, he starts with like...
Listen,
50.
he starts at 50, he's working his way down, and he keeps working his way down. And I'm like, the guy must have won.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are we wasting our time? No, he came in 10th.
yes.
That was the whole promo.
Listen.
He never even brought up the $1 million.
No, it slipped his mind.
Maybe the car paid off the debt.
Okay,
You get 10th and you get $1 million. I don't know.
I agree that in context, this made no sense.
Thank you.
If you watch this in a vacuum, if you just watch this Randy Savage promo, I realize he's
That's
already
a hell of a vacuum.
he's already in the Hall of Fame. We need to reenact him. This promo was amazing. He had to cut it for the race car driver, because this race car driver, nothing he said was going to be exciting.
No.
This man raced cars 200 miles an hour and crashed into walls. Still very, very, very dull.
He grabbed the mic away from Tenay, him being Savage.
Yeah.
And then conducted the interview with the race car driver.
Yeah.
And he was out of his mind.
I've never seen a man.
Has he ever not been?
Yes.
When?
This was the craziest he's ever been.
Yeah.
I know that, but is
Easily.
he ever in his right mind?
No.
Okay.
But the way he built up, they could have just said, this is the Slim Jim race car driver. He finished 10th. He has a race coming up. And been done. And that's all the information they had. And Savage took that and ran with it.
Oh, yeah.
And he went nuts. And he stretched it out. And he got more and more excited. We're in the top 50. Holy cow. We're in the top 25. The top 25. Praise the Macho Man upstairs.
Yes.
We're in the top 15. It was outstanding. So he cussed this promo.
And then he gets to 10.
No. He went from 15. Were you in the top 12, brother?
Yeah.
And then. No. Oh, he was in 10th place, baby.
Yeah, 10th.
Wow.
15 to 12 to 10.
He was 7 spots away from a bronze medal.
Well, you know what? They did beat the NWO car.
They beat the NWO.
And you know what car they didn't mention?
No.
WCW car?
That's the one that got 10th.
No, it was the Slim Jim car got 10th.
Oh, I see.
They did not mention Sting's car.
That's the car.
Oh, yeah.
That means he must not have made the top 50.
He probably did not.
Well, it would have
Wow.
been funny if Sting's car would have hit the NWO car.
No wonder
into the
Sting
wall.
didn't come back.
His car sucked. So, Savage
He
spends...
rewarded me with a top 100 car. Not even top 50, you idiots.
Savage spends 4 minutes celebrating the Slim Jim car's 10th place finish. Then he hypes up the next race this weekend in Carolina or wherever the hell we are. We're going to race again. Y'all want to be there for that. And then he turns into the camera and he goes to hyper serious mode and hypes up his main event match with Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc. And it was super intense. I thought, holy crap, I want to see that too. This was amazing. This was... I can't express how
You
great this
could
was.
not
It was-
peel your eyes away from the television
No.
he was on.
No,
It was better than Ryback on Raw. How about that?
it was. And it always will be.
Look at Vinny's eyes. when he does that. That's what you should Periscope. You need 2 phones.
This was great. So then Elizabeth comes out and tries to say something to him, but he blows her off and storms off.
Dude, Liz has been wandering in the forest now
It's like 3
for
weeks.
at least 7 days. Every time you see her, she's just wandering woefully.
Faces of Fear versus High Voltage.
So you watched this.
Yes,
Thank God. Were they not great? The Barbarian and Ming.
they were pretty awesome. There's nothing wrong with them, that's for sure.
They came out here and they just threw around High Voltage.
They did.
Now-
Huge men.
This is what I loved about it. First off, they look awesome. Ming and Barbarian. Second off, they just ramble incoherently,
All the
which is
time.
awesome for their gimmick.
Yeah.
And third, even when he's throwing around the Big Show, there is a finesse to Brock Lesnar.
Sure.
There is no finesse to these men.
They just herk you up and throw you down.
They grab you, they lift you, and they drop you repeatedly.
The best part was, and I'm sure they didn't plan it this way, but it came off great. They gave High Voltage some offense, and High Voltage tried some kind of double springboard thing,
Oh, jeez.
and they mistimed it horribly, and one guy hit and fell down, and the other guy landed on his feet and didn't do anything. At that point, Ming was like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
And they just killed him to death.
And they're beating on Rage, who's the brown-haired Voltage.
Yeah.
And they beat him, and they beat him, and they beat him, and then they beat him.
Yes.
He never tagged his buddy. He never got a hot tag. He was beaten until he was killed.
Their finish, someone needs to steal this immediately. And they didn't even, their execution was not great. But this
No, forget that. You need to bring him back.
Oh, these two.
Yes.
All right. But they did a slingshot into a big boot.
Yeah.
The big boot we talked about last week.
I guess we did.
He booted the man in the back of the head and killed him.
To see this huge man in rage, the huge man getting powerbombed and dropped again and again and falling with such force, and you could see the pain on his face. I don't think he was selling.
No.
He was being beaten
He was getting
by
killed.
two angry Polynesian men.
You know this was? It was show muscle against man muscle.
Gotcha.
You were not wrong. All right, we noted earlier that the World Tag Team Champions, Harlem Heat, did not get an entrance in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who did?
Yeah.
Mike Wenner.
No, his name is Wiener.
Mike Wenner came out.
Wenner.
That's how it's spelled, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wenner.
Okay.
Wenner.
No, Wenner.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
That would have been Wiener the way I
Ed
spelled
spelled
it.
Yes.
it for you.
Apparently.
So Mike Wenner had a sweet mullet.
You wrote down Mike Wiener?
Yeah, I did.
Mike Wenner had a sweet mullet.
Oh, he sure did.
Mike Wenner had a leather jacket.
He had a mustache.
Mike Wenner had facial hair and chest hair.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Wenner had a bit of a gut
Mm-hmm.
and a singlet.
And he was awesome.
And he comes out and he's yelling at fans. And I'm just beside myself. What's going on? Why is Mike Wenner getting an entrance?
Why not?
So he was there to face Glacier. So I can only assume that he was one of Glacier's buddies. And Glacier got him this spot to do a job on Nitro. So Glacier comes out. And the announcers are saying, the amazing thing about Glacier is that he studied so many different styles. He has studied Okinawan style and Korean style and soft style and hard style. And there's been a lot of martial artists in pro wrestling, but they've always had one style. They've always been easy to defend. Okay, Mike Tyson had one style,
It's true.
and it was really a very limited style.
Yeah, it was called Kill.
It was very difficult to defend against Mike Tyson.
It's called Matanza. By the way, I haven't revealed the name of our child.
Is it Matanza?
But I was thinking the other night, and I thought, you know what? If we have a boy next, Matanza would be the most awesome middle name. So I come home and I'm like, Whitney, if we have a boy, have I got a middle name for him? Matanza. And she's like, oh yeah? Where'd you get that? And I was like, well, it's, I'm Hispanic. She goes, oh yeah? Where'd you get it? So finally I admit, well, there's a guy on Lucha Underground named Matanza, but it's a really cool name. And she's like, yeah, we'll think about it. So then I go Google it
That means no.
because I want to find out what Matanza means. Slaughter.
Excellent.
And I thought, okay, so someday she's going to Google this and it's totally out of the question right now. But then the real thing that hit me was, how in the world, in 100 years of Lucha, did no one ever come up with a Matanza before Lucha Underground? That should have been the first heel.
I don't know.
Brian, do you know what your name means?
Awesome.
No. I mean, have you looked it up?
Alcoholic.
Really?
No. It means something conquering or something wacky. Yeah.
Vinny?
There was one of those baby name books in junior high school, and Vincent Aaron, in that order, meant Invincible Tower of Strength.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not making that up.
Wow.
Mine is a Craig or Crag.
Crag.
Yes, would be a
Like a rocky crag.
would be a jagged rock on the side of a mountain.
Yeah. Crag.
My son's name, Cameron, means broken nose.
I thought you meant stone.
That's his middle name.
It really means broken nose?
Means broken nose.
What a terrible name.
Can you change
I mean,
it?
no offense, but
That's why we use Stone as just that and the guy from Pearl Jam.
sure.
But
Can
anyway,
you change the boy's name?
no, it's fine.
It's not about broken noses.
He'll have his fair share.
You've doomed him.
This young fella.
It's inevitable now. So Glacier does he does all his wacky kicks. He does a couple of pro wrestling slams. He does a pescado, and these announcers were like Mystico in his prime had just performed before them. Did you see that dive?
Can you imagine if Eric was calling the match?
Yeah.
Why isn't he calling them?
Oh, we'll get to Eric. Oh, I got a lot to say about
that's
Eric.
True.
So Glacier won with his wacky roundhouse kick, which I will say looked much better this week than it has before. Hugh Morris versus Jeff Jarrett. Can we get individual music for the various Dungeon of Doom people? I don't need to hear that song
It's the same, isn't it?
All
Yes,
I know,
that's my
that's
point.
his point. He wants
Oh,
a
I
different
gotcha.
song for
Yeah,
everybody.
My bad.
All I know is Jeff's got a very pleasant song here in WCW.
Jeff's a happy country tune.
And you know what's funny? It comes out to a happy country tune.
Yeah.
He's wearing all white.
Yes.
He works totally as a heel.
Yes.
He wins, and then he cuts a babyface promo.
Yes.
And weren't they like in Georgia this
What?
week?
I forget. They might had a NASCAR guy.
Somewhere in the South.
They usually were in the South, but
Yeah.
yes.
The only thing I can think is they wanted him to work as a heel because the whole thing was they wanted you to think he was in the NWO, and then it would be a swerve when he revealed that he's actually out to get Hulk Hogan.
By the way, adding to the confusion, he was playing a heel, which means we got babyface Hugh Morris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when Matt Farmer used to argue about Jeff Jarrett?
Oh, you and him would go round and round. You were talking.
20 years we've been having this conversation now.
Yeah. Should get him. What's the number? Let me call him right now.
What were you talking about? It was one of the luchadors. You said that this luchador was better than Jeff Jarrett, and you guys would go round and round and round.
La Parca?
No, it wasn't him. It doesn't matter.
It
but
doesn't matter, but
Yeah,
Matt was a big Jeff Jarrett fan.
yeah, absolutely.
But I remember two things I remember. One, you used to sell an insider terms booklet,
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
and where you explain the lingo,
Yes.
jargon, and you'd go through and you would see babyface definition, the good guy in a wrestling match. Example: Jeff Jarrett is the worst babyface ever.
Which we found out here.
And then you would turn the page or a few pages, and you get to the H's, and it would say heel, the bad guy in a wrestling match. Example: Jeff Jarrett is the worst heel ever. So you did that little thing, and then even better.
Was bad promotion in there? Jeff Jarrett founded the worst promotion ever?
That would be a fact.
Okay.
The one time I helped you fold newsletters, you I was folding them, and you know where we're going with this.
I know where you're going. I actually remember this.
So I was folding them, and you were slapping on the address labels, and you get to Matt's, and you slap the address label on there, and you say, "I'm gonna do a little present for him," and so you made a little drawing of Jeff Jarrett.
in his blinking jacket.
In his blinking hat. And then you put the word balloon there and it says, "I suck." And then...
I was so proud of myself. And it was a good drawing.
Well, then you said, "I'm going to put more sparkles on here." And you went to work and you were sparkles and lights. And then you sat up, for 4 minutes, you were just doing this. And you sat up and said, "Well, I ruined that."
I'm sure it was all a gimmick to make you fold more.
Probably.
But-
Probably was.
But I was very proud of the drawing. And I
So-
didn't ruin it.
Getting back to this Nitro in 1996 here. So you bring a new guy in. You put him over as someone who's wrestled around the country and for the other promotion. And he's here to make a big impact. And you put him in there with a bottom of the card heel and have him give him a back and forth encounter. Jeff Jarrett, geek from day one. He did at least win
He did win.
with a figure 4.
So he did better than if he debuted on Raw.
Then he went to be interviewed by Shivani. And he talked about Hogan's claims of being bigger than the wrestling business itself, how he had disrespected promoters like Vern Gagne and Jerry Jarrett. And he's talking about history and tradition and great champions of the past, and the crowd is just drowning him out with NWO chants. And he got a little flustered and finally told Hogan to stick it. This was a poor debut. They go to the announce desk where Bischoff and the crew is out there now, and the Weasel chants for Bobby Heenan was some of the biggest heat in the show. Then they began to talk about Lex Luger and Arn Anderson. Now, you'll recall that when Sting and Lex wanted to be in the War Games match, Arn was skeptical,
Yes.
and he questioned Luger's toughness and his tenacity. And he wanted to make sure Lex was in this, he would not
In
surrender.
it to win it.
In it to win it and would not surrender. Because as Arn said, you'd have to kill me to get me to give up. So he took Lex at his word, and what happened? Not only did Lex's friend stab him on the back, but Lex gave up. And Arn was blaming Lex for that loss. This is a simple story. This is a great angle. Why are Mike Tenay and Eric Bischoff speaking for Arn Anderson?
Great question.
Does anyone know?
I don't know. Maybe it was on Saturday night, but they ran out of
It
time.
might have been. Arn Anderson versus the Renegade then happened. All right.
What got me was they gave him 8 minutes.
I was fine with that.
I wasn't. This would have been fine at 4 minutes.
Footnote, there'll have more to say about Bischoff later, but he noted here, it's important in sports to control the pace. That's true in pro wrestling. That's true in football. That's true in golf. Golf?
There's a pace.
Does golf have a pace? And if so, how would you go about controlling said pace? Now listen, this I understand why, from a storyline standpoint, from a booking standpoint, this should have been Arn squashing him in 3 minutes. But it wasn't. And you know why I was fine with that? Because Arn Anderson was awesome. And I don't get to watch him enough. I enjoy
Well, you got to watch plenty of him here.
I watched Arn Anderson wrestle, and I was ecstatic about this. So,
He idiot-proofed the match.
yes,
He did a long chin lock.
yes,
He did a long arm bar. He gave the guy some moves. And then the Renegade, who, by the way, God bless the guy. He came to a tragic end. But the Renegade tried.
yeah.
He just was no good.
The thing is, about the Renegade, I watched him in the mirror, he had greatly improved by this point. But because he got such a big push out of the gate, and because he was so bad out of the gate, he was doomed.
Yes.
No one's ever going to like him.
He goes for his springboard into the corner. He tries the second time. Arn cuts him off. Everybody knows the DDT is coming.
Mm-hmm.
The place goes nuts.
Yeah.
He hits his DDT. They go crazy, and he pins the Renegade. That made this worthwhile.
They went so crazy that Bischoff thought somebody was coming through the crowd or out of the gate. He says,
Instead,
wait a minute, what's going on? What's going on, Eric, is that everyone loves Arn Anderson.
they respected this man.
Oh, this is awesome.
Mike Tenay also alerted us that on the Bash, let me just pull up my notes again, I'm sorry, of 95, that the Renegade actually beat Arn Anderson,
Wow.
the TV title.
I recall that.
Prior
It sucked.
history. It was much worse than this one. So Arn continued his attack afterwards until Lex ran down to make the save and Arn bailed. Thank God for Arn Anderson. Dave Taylor versus Lex Luger.
Why did Dave Taylor beat up Jeeves?
You mentioned earlier, we were talking about bullies, and you enjoyed DDP bullying Teddy Long.
Yes.
I enjoyed Dave Taylor bullying Jeeves.
It's just
I
not
have
nice.
no idea what Jeeves did to deserve this. I'm just a terrible person. But watching him take this ass whipping was great. Dave beat the crap out of Jeeves. If started bullying, a little shoving, a little kicking, he laid him out with an uppercut and left him for dead.
And then he cut a promo. He sounded like Tyler Breeze. Yeah, go back and listen.
All right. So Lex got an inset promo.
This I've got to talk about. Lex is standing there. He has no shirt on, obviously.
Of course not.
Why would you?
And he bounces both of his pecs.
Yeah.
And then he says, I got two things to say. And he cuts his generic babyface promo. Still better than the promos on Raw. And they go back to the announcers, and he's in the ring. And Eric Bischoff says, when Lex said he had two things to say, I thought he was going to say left pec, right pec. That's what Eric said.
Yes.
I died.
You're not wrong. I don't know why Lex got to talk and Arn didn't, by the way. So they had a short basic match. It was fun. Taylor missed a very funny elbow off the ropes, and Lex put him away with a torture rack. And this is a key point, because in this whole NWO saga, obviously the main player is Sting, and Hogan was the main villain. But there is a subplot to all this that is the redemption of Lex Luger. Because Lex had hit rock bottom. His best friend had turned on him. He was the one who submitted in WCW's biggest match at that point against the NWO. Then he lost the TV title to Steve Regal. So we cut a promo on that, but he had hit rock bottom, and this was step one in his redemption. The redemption of Lex Luger. Then he went to the back, and Arn jumped him with a chair and laid him out, and okay, that was rock bottom.
Well, you know, Arn got his revenge for Luger coming down to save the Renegade. His kindred spirit.
I guess so. Rick Steiner versus Chris Benoit.
Oh, man.
Dude.
This was awesome. This was last week. You missed this, right?
I missed the one they had last week.
Mm-hmm.
This was better.
Really? Oh, well, fuck, it was great.
It was longer.
You know what was sad, though, was as fun as it was, all I could think was, I've got to see Chris Benoit versus Scott Steiner. And Scott's on the outside, and they note he needs back surgery.
Yeah. 2
herniated discs. And I was like, damn it.
So let me explain how this match went.
This should be simple.
Yes, it was. They took turns beating the crap out of each other, throwing these awesome punches and forearms and chops. And then every minute or so, one of them would grab the other and hit a big suplex.
Yep.
Repeat.
Yeah.
I could watch these
Wondrous.
men. I could have watched these men trade punches for hours. No one can throw a punch anymore. These dudes can throw punches. So, as noted, Mongo's out there in Benoit's corner, and Scott's out there in Rick's corner, and Nick Patrick's the referee in his neck brace. And he drops down to count at one point, and Scott Steiner, who, as we all know, is legit out of his mind, he just reaches into the ring, grabs Nick, and starts roughing him up by the neck.
Yeah, because Nick counted, and Benoit kicked out, and Scott decided in his mind, no, that was a pin. He roughs him up by the neck. Nick Patrick jumps up. Scott is screaming at him. And to his credit, even though it's fake, Nick is amazingly not intimidated. Now, this was 2,000 miles away from me, and 19 years ago, I was scared out of my mind when Scott jumped up on that apron. I was like, okay, it was a 3, dude. It was a 3. Not Nick.
My favorite part was Benoit staring at Scott in complete bewilderment.
Yeah.
What is this guy doing? So they're having this great, awesome match.
Let me talk about this finish.
Please.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
Because I rewound it. Even though I knew you guys were going to be here, I didn't care. I rewound it over and over again, which is not easy on Apple TV.
I know why.
What happens was, Deborah takes the ref, and first I'll tell you what the spot was supposed to be. I'll tell you what actually happened. Mongo's supposed to pretend he's going to throw the briefcase in the ring, but Scott's supposed to come up and stop him, and then Mongo goes to hit him, but the briefcase gets taken away by Rick. That's what's supposed to happen. What happened was, Mongo grabs the briefcase, he puts it on the apron to slide it in, and he waits. And he waits. And he waits. And finally he turns around and goes, oh, it's Scott. Scott starts coming at him. And so, in the slowest manner possible,
Yes.
Mongo raises the briefcase above his head, and he holds it there.
The world made one complete revolution.
And he starts walking towards the guy with it above his head. And keep in mind, part of it is Scott is not scared about anything for real. The other part is he knows he's not going to get hit. So he doesn't flinch. He doesn't put his own hands up.
Yeah.
He just keeps walking at the guy like a movie monster. And Mongo's got the thing above his head. He's got it above his head. And finally, Rick grabs it. And Rick is in the ring, and Mongo is on the floor. So Rick, from way above, raises the briefcase as high above his head as he can, and he goes, wham!
El Kabong.
And Mongo, his body goes limp.
Yes.
He looks directly into the camera, and he just goes, ew.
Like a cartoon.
It was...
It was amazing.
First of all,
I
he's
died.
got his ponytail. He's got those John Lennon sunglasses on. And he gets bumped. And the only way I can think... It wasn't so much melting because he went down fast. But if you were standing straight up and then just kick your legs out in front of you and fall on your ass, that's how Mongo fell. And his face made it. Because
Yeah.
he's got the sunglasses on and his expression is blank.
Yeah. It's like if you had a marionette on the strings and you're having it dance around and then suddenly you just let go on accident and the thing just goes meow
Yes.
and falls down dead. That's what Mongo did.
Yes.
I rewound this over and over and over and over and over again.
This was like Roadrunner and Coyote.
It was so amazing. And of course, it's Rick swinging this thing
Hell yeah.
from way up high.
Yeah.
So you know he hit this guy. So he may have knocked him out. This guy may have had 2 ruptured discs after this was over.
Yes. And so Rick finally waffles Benoit with the briefcase and pins him. That was an outstanding match with a great finish.
And then, and Nick Patrick didn't see any of this.
He's
And
got
so,
a neck brace on, dude.
so Bobby says, hey, I've had a neck brace on.
Yeah.
I'll bet Nick Patrick just couldn't turn his head.
Right.
And Shivani goes, what? And Tanae goes, well, you know, he had a neck brace on. He probably couldn't turn his head. And Shivani's like, what? Shivani is baffled that they're defending Nick Patrick. And Bobby Heenan just flat out says, listen, I'm telling the truth for once. He probably couldn't turn his head. That's how they explained all of this.
So somewhere in here, I was actually much earlier. I wanted to see this about Bischoff. We all know how much Bischoff loves karate.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll call a drop kick a double leg jump kick or whatever. So there's a point, this is actually in the Jarrett Morris match, but it's important enough to me, I wanted to go back and talk about this. Somebody threw a kick, and Bischoff says, front leg round kick. And there's a pause, and then he corrects himself. I'm sorry, that was a back leg front kick.
It's very important that he gets this right.
It was important enough to me to bring it up to you. So in the middle of that Benoit match, Hogan and the Giant showed up in a limo, and Hogan told Giant to watch his back, dude.
Brother.
And
DiBiase is there.
DiBiase's also there.
And the Nasty Boys are there.
Nasty Boys are there, and yeah, it was okay.
The key to this.
I remember this. I can't find where it is in my notes.
Well, the point of this is DiBiase has paperwork
Yes,
in order for the Nasty Boys to join the NWO.
I imagine it's a letterhead.
You've got to sign an NWO contract to put on this black shirt and be a hooligan.
Yes. So yeah, that happened. So it's supposed to be Savage versus Flair. Savage comes out, and then they cut backstage where the NWO is taking out Flair, and they're all giving him a gang beating. And Six is there with a camcorder recording the whole thing, which is funny because when they did the BWO and ECW,
Yes.
whoever was being Six always had a camera. I never knew why.
Now you know.
Now I know.
Rob Feinstein was 7.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's creepy.
What I got out of this is they're beating up Flair. And Vincent, what was his name at the time?
Vincent.
You're right.
He's there celebrating with Flair's U.S. title. And boy, is he celebrating. He's holding the belt. He's holding the belt in the air. He's yelling at the camera. And I was watching and it suddenly struck me. Has this man ever won a belt in his whole career? Is that why he's so excited to have the U.S. title in his hands? Because he's never won a belt? So I went up and looked. And believe it or not, he has won.
He won the $1 million belt.
He was the AWA International Heavyweight Champion,
I stand corrected.
Wow.
Yeah.
which blew my mind. He was the AWA Southern Tag Team Champion with Rocky Johnson. Mind double blown.
So this would be the pre-Virgil.
I guess so.
Wow.
He was the New Jack City Wrestling
Post-Virgil.
Heavyweight Champion. He was the United States Wrestling League Champion, which I think may have been a promotion he created, because I've never heard of this. The Intercontinental Champion, mind you. And he was the unofficial $1 million champion.
Unofficial.
If anybody wants to book me in a championship match, email me, because I cannot finish my life having won less titles than Virgil.
How many did you win?
Well,
It's right over
One
there.
right there.
Texarkana title.
YWF.
I won't count those, even
Oh,
though
really?
Virgil would. ICW Tag Team Champions twice.
One of them was a Phantom change.
No, there was no Phantom change.
Oh, yes, there was.
No,
You and Buddy were champs.
I think you're thinking of something totally different.
All right, go ahead.
PNPW Television Champion. So I got 4,
All right.
and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're tied.
Well, you need to challenge Virgil
And
then.
actually, if he's counting the United States Wrestling League title, I'll count the YWF title. So I'm ahead of him.
All right.
Disregard everything I said, everybody. I'm cool now.
So Woman and Liz were back there freaking out, and Giant starts stalking Liz through the hallway, and they're passing various TV dudes, and they're not doing anything to save her. And you know what? I'm cool with that, because it's the Giant. I
Yeah.
wouldn't get in his way either.
No, that's fine.
By the way, when they were beating up Flair, I laughed because Kevin Nash, as tall and white as he is, yelled, "Thug life."
That's what he did.
You know how you say Kevin Nash is never funny?
That was funny.
And I'm sure he knew it was funny.
Yeah. He's had a line here and there. I'm not saying he's never funny.
All right. So Giant stalks Liz out in the arena, and Savage shows up with a chair to defend his ex-wife. But then Hogan jumps him from behind. And I thought, holy cow, an evil genius plot that actually is evil and genius. They beat up Flair and harassed Liz just as an excuse to distract Savage so Hogan can jump from behind. Great. They beat him up forever. And Hogan held Liz while Giant beat up Savage. And they're going down to the ring, and Giant has Savage over one shoulder.
Oh my God.
And Giant begins to climb the steps. And he puts one of his feet on the very, very, very side of the steps.
On the top.
And the next thing you know, those steps are not underneath him anymore.
No.
And Giant goes flying. Savage goes flying. Savage's back lands on the stairs. His head lands on the ground. I screamed.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he was fine because they kept beating him up.
Or he was dead.
Or he was dead.
Maybe he's completely
at this
out.
point.
He was just a dummy at that point.
Yep. So they beat him up for a long time, and first Hogan held Liz while Giant beat him up, and then Giant held Liz while Hogan beat him up. There are a bunch of leg drops. Hogan pulls out spray paint, puts a chalk outline around him.
You're missing the key moment here when they're beating him up and the Giant grabs Randy around the neck. He hoists him high in the air. He's about to chokeslam him to death, and Hogan goes, "Wait, brother. Put him down." And he commands the Giant to put him down so that Hulk can punch him.
I don't know. Many things about Hogan I don't understand. I just don't question anymore. So they put a chocolate outline around, spray paint outline around Savage's body. Spray paint NWO rules on the mat, put an HH in his back, and garbage is filling the ring. Somebody threw a full soda that hit Giant in the back. And Giant's looking down at Savage's limp body, and Giant says, "Rest in peace."
Now, throughout all
That
of
one's
this...
taken.
Yeah. Throughout all of this, Bischoff is saying they're not going to get in here. We've got security everywhere. They're not going to get up to this announce booth to destroy it again. Little did he know.
Yeah, so Hogan eventually moves on, and this went on for a while. And finally he says, "You know what? We've destroyed Savage. Let's destroy the announce desk too." And Heenan and Tenay, I guess, bail. Bischoff is screaming, "No, no, no." And then you hear a noise. A roaring noise. 2 or 3 times. And then a monster truck comes barreling out in the arena.
Eric Bischoff was backstage for a full hour when the show started.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see a gigantic monster truck with enormous arms sculpted onto it?
It was the Hulk Hogan monster truck from the match with the Giant, just repainted. 6 leaning out the window, pointing
Acting
around.
like a goof.
As well, yeah, that was his job.
Yeah.
And the truck went over to the announce desk that Hulk Hogan had just threatened to destroy. And it revved its engine, and it revved its engine, and it revved, and it revved, and it revved, and it revved, and the show ended.
Yeah, that was the end of it.
That was it.
You know, I said at the beginning of the show, I realize that we're wrestling fans. I realize that we watch wrestling. But it is mind-boggling to me that people are so into huge trucks. Still, to this day. What is it about big trucks?
I'll tell you this. If
Yes.
there's a scale of fans, I would put monster truck fans very low on the scale.
Huh.
Right under wrestling fans.
Wow.
I will say this. Anyone who has ever been stuck in traffic,
Well, I'd like one.
they at least understand the appeal. They may not like it themselves. They may not want to go, but they get it.
Well, I get wanting to have one. I'd love to have that thing in traffic.
Well,
But I don't want to go watch someone else's monster truck on a random course.
the theory is you can live vicariously through them.
But when you go to a monster truck show, it's not like there's stop and go traffic, and then the monster truck
There-
comes and smashes through
There
everything.
really should be. That would be better.
That would be. I'd go to that actually. Now that I think about it.
As a man who lives in Puyallup, I've been to a monster truck show, and it's actually a very fun time.
I went to one, but I was way too young and it was too loud and hurt my ears and I cried.
One last thing about Nitro, then we'll play a song. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but when you watch the last 4 weeks of Nitro, it is impossible. It is impossible to believe that Randy Savage is not going to beat Hulk Hogan for the WWE
Yes.
World Heavyweight title at Halloween Havoc. He's only been beaten up on every single solitary show. Obliterated over and over again. This is a good one, I think. Braun Strowman. Jolly.
Happy soul
It's going to be Hillbilly Jim in a year.
and a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal.
Braun Strowman.
As
Like Jeep Swenson with hair?
they say, he was
Big and scary.
but the children know
Within a year, this guy's going to be just a jolly dancing babyface.
one day.
Christmas is coming. Maybe we should do the Halloween song contest, Craig. What about that? It's been a long time since we did it.
It's your show, baby.
Problem is, there's only one Halloween song I like, the Monster Mash. So if you don't do the Monster Mash, I don't like your
Are there
song.
others?
There's actually a ton. Right now, the digital music channel, I assume they're in the Halloween music. Yeah.
I thought you had more to say.
No, I had it on.
We had
one
the
year.
one Monster Mash Battle Royal song that I can't imagine could ever be topped. That's the problem. It seems impossible. Keep thinking, Craig. Go ahead, Vinny. Nitro.
Monday Nitro number 57, October 14th, 1996. Random thought as I'm watching the opening here. The NWO by this point was several months old. It was the hottest act in wrestling and had, in storyline, earned several key victories over WCW. Still, no hint of it in the opening credits. They recapped the NWO forcing Elizabeth to watch the destruction of Randy Savage last week. Then we got Dean Malenko versus Brad Armstrong.
What a great match.
They had a great wrestling match, and I emphasize that. Not only did either of these men at any point ever break the rules, they almost never ran the ropes. They almost never used strikes. I noticed one dropkick, which was cool. I noticed one corner clothesline. Otherwise, they did takedowns and holds and attempted to pin and submit each other. It was awesome.
It's amazing because I was thinking about Craig's text when I started the show, and then this was the opener, and it was awesome. And I thought, this will honestly have to be the most boring show ever to ruin this segment. That's how good this match was.
This match was great. My favorite spot is Dean is playing heel, and as Vinny noted, there was a drop kick thrown, but that was right after Dean had challenged him to a test of strength. And right as Brad is about to take his hand, he steps up and does a standing drop kick, and it was awesome.
I am constantly amazed at how great Dean Malenko is.
What about Brad?
I mean, Brad was...
Good Lord.
Everyone knew Brad was great. Brad had good matches, but he was just a dude. He was never like a main event or a player or anything. He just had good enhancement matches. Dean Malenko was pushed for a long time. And I always felt he was so robotic at the time. Now I look back and... Can he come out of retirement?
Probably.
You know how good he'd be on Raw nowadays?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when they had Jamie Noble wrestling out of retirement and he was the best guy in the show in his first match?
Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
Yeah, Dean was... he made it look easy, and it's not. So, Larry's going about the Armstrong family and mentions the Armstrong curse. They always seem to lose matches they should win. Meanwhile, on the other channel, Brad's brother is about to debut as Jesse James.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a subtle shot at that angle. Oh, if only I had known what was to come. So they're having a great match, and then Dean does a go-behind, he does a leg trip, and he rolls Brad up with a 3/4 Nelson cradle and pins him.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Couple of other notes. The fans are going nuts for the NWO. There's Cesaro section-style NWO signs everywhere. They're chanting for them. And our referee for this contest is our main man, Nick Patrick, who has a neck brace on. And it's bad enough that they've got a man in a neck brace refereeing matches. But every time he drops down to count, he has to hold his own head. Like if he lets go, it will fall off.
Yeah.
And then he stands up and he sells intense pain. And even the announcers are like, can we maybe get a new ref? Maybe he shouldn't be in the ring right now. But he keeps going.
The storyline was the people in charge of WCW are incompetent goofs.
Oh, yeah.
And the storyline continued until the company died, and then it transferred to TNA.
That is true.
And thrived for another decade plus.
And it somehow wormed its way
I don't know if
into
I'd use the
WWE.
term thrived.
The storyline, well, survived. It's a parasite that damages its host but does not kill it. Because TNA is not dead.
Trying to think of a good word.
It's still around. Survived somehow. Anyway, this was very fun.
Okay, as I'm looking at my notes, the matches on this show: Wall Street versus Duggan,
Sucked.
Well,
Powers versus Hugh Morris, Luger and Valentine.
what's the point you're making here?
This was a boring show.
Well, let's recap it.
Jump ahead.
Yeah, what are we jumping ahead for? I got great things to say about all these matches.
The NWO arrived. They are now so bloated and overblown, they had to have 2 limos. They were in Memphis, and these fans loved Hulk Hogan. They showed Hacksaw Duggan defeating M. Wall Street on Saturday night, only for Nick Patrick to reverse the decision because Duggan had illegally taped his fist.
After all these years of taping his fists right in front of the referee, finally, Their heel ref
Yeah.
is the first ref ever to fairly enforce the rules.
He made sure that the rules were followed and enforced, and this makes him a bad person you should boo.
Yes. This makes him a villain.
Now, I will agree with this because it led to a rematch of Hacksaw Duggan versus M. Wall Street here on Nitro.
Okay, I'll be fair. This was bad.
Thank you.
Jim Duggan is so much worse than Sid.
Yeah.
We make fun of Sid. We make fun of Sid's punches. Sid is Dean Malenko compared to this Jim Duggan fella.
I was watching him here and thinking, you made a living, a good one,
Yeah.
throwing punches for 20 years.
Yeah,
At some point, wouldn't you get better just on accident?
you'd think.
What about his bumps?
Also horrible.
Yeah, he was terrible at every aspect of
The
his job.
only thing-
Except,
Go ahead.
except, even though he got disqualified on Saturday night,
Right.
Jim Duggan in storyline is so dumb that during this match, he begins to tape his fists again. And as Jim Duggan, so he doesn't surreptitiously tape his fists. He raises his hand high into the air. He pulls out way more tape than you'd ever need. And he starts swinging it around his hand.
Not what you make, it's what you save.
Right in front of Mark Curtis.
Go back just a little bit, and he was in the corner. His eyes are virtually crossed. He's got his tongue out,
Virtually.
and now he's tugging at the inside of his tights. Made for a horrible visual.
Must we? So he doesn't have his 2x4, but he's got his tape. He wraps it around his fist.
I broke Vinny.
The referee, Mark Curtis, is like, dude, you know you can't do this. And he tries to stop him. VK grabs the tape. He wraps his fist. And he's about to use an illegal taped fist punch when Hacksaw rushes in, clotheslines him, and pins him. And the crowd goes crazy. So you know what? At the end of the day, he at least knew how to be a babyface. This was a terrible match with a stupid finish, and they loved it.
It was a 1986 house show match and a 1996 TV show. But it was a lot of wacky brawling, which pleased the Memphis crowd. So there you go.
Good for him.
I will say one other thing for Duggan, because this just made me laugh. Very early on, he's in the corner. And if you know Jim Duggan, he does two things. He says, USA, and he says, ho! So he's in the corner, and he wants to say, ho! But M. Wall Street is kicking him, which interrupts him, but he won't give up. So it's kick, huh, kick, huh, kick, huh. This went on for a while.
I also love it when Zbyszko at the end of the match just casually referred to him as a complete moron.
That's Larry for you.
Yeah.
Before they went to commercial, they said, stick around, folks. You'll get to see Hugh Morris wrestle Jim Powers.
That's what they said.
They were daring people to turn to Raw at this point.
You know what, though? If you turned to Raw, you probably would have turned right back.
I know. I know. So we got Hugh Morris versus Jim Powers in the most fascinating moment on the show.
Oh, yeah?
As mentioned, they were in Memphis in the Mid-South Coliseum,
That's right.
and Tony Schiavone very publicly, very clearly thanks Mr. Lawler
Yep.
for helping to promote the show and draw the biggest crowd in the building's history. Mr. Lawler was currently working for the other company on the other channel.
That's right.
Like, literally at that moment. Weird. So they're doing the match. It's very boring.
I'll tell you what was great about it, though.
All right.
Nick Patrick's once again the ref.
Patrick was the ref.
And this time, he's blatantly slow counting every time Jim Powers makes a cover. These fans were furious at this man. Not like today where you have the goofy, it's not so much, they don't do it today, but a decade ago, they used to always have those heel refs in WWE. It was Vince or Stephanie or whoever. And the fans would be mad because they were just getting screwed with bad storylines. They believed this diabolical Nick Patrick was purposely slow counting this Jim Powers. And Nick Patrick is pretending it's just his neck. His neck hurts so bad it takes him a little too long. It's not like he's taken forever. It's not like he's blatantly holding up his count. He's just taken longer to get down to the ground. And the fans are so angry. They're standing on their feet and they're shaking their fists at this guy as he's slow counting Jim Powers. That made this worthwhile.
All I know is I was watching this, and all I could think was, Hugh Morris had an amazing amount of physical talent. Why wasn't he better?
It's a good question.
He should have been better and a bigger star than he was. So eventually, after he would tease the moonsault and climb back down, and everyone would boo and he'd laugh at them, and then Powers made his comeback, and after some shenanigans with Patrick, he suplexed Powers into the back of his neck, which looked like it sucked, and then pinned him with a moonsault.
To which Nick counted very quickly.
Yeah, perfect count.
Yeah.
His neck went back in.
Sure, that could happen.
I wrote right here, so far, this show is awesome.
What?
Then we had Luger and Valentine.
That is generous. I will say
Okay,
that.
maybe I'm being a little generous.
Yes, Lex Luger versus Greg Valentine. Valentine came out following in the steps of Duggan and Wall Street. All I could think was, how many washed-up 1980s has-beens are on this show?
A lot of them.
Many.
But you know what? As we learn with the women in WWE today, every match is better if it tells a story. And this story was that last week, Arn Anderson hit Lex Luger in the back with a chair. And so Lex Luger's back was hurt. And he couldn't lift this man. And this man worked over his back. And honest to God, the match was fine. Lex Luger versus Greg Valentine, it was fine. And then, when Luger racked the man, the Mid-South Coliseum goes crazy. All I could think was, next time WWE goes back to Memphis, let's remember this Nitro.
Yes. This crowd loved this match. Let's see how they react to guys working 20 times as hard on Raw. I did write excessively dull.
Wow.
So then Shivani interviews Patrick.
This is so amazing.
This was amazing. Now, let's review. Randy Savage punched Patrick in an angle on a Saturday night, and so
Yes.
Patrick levied a $1 million fine against Randy Savage.
$1 million because he struck a referee.
Shivani informs him that WCW management has intervened. First of all, they have reduced that fine from $1 million to $500.
Maybe they talked to Mr. Lawler.
I guess so. But they added he would also be suspended for the first 5 matches of 1997.
Wow. I thought it was the first 5 days.
He said matches.
Which may have been no matches.
He said matches, but it could have been any, like the first 5 matches on the first show of 97.
Yeah, I don't
so you
know.
still work the main event?
Sure.
But I like, and I get this is the point. The point is that they're taking it easy on him because they understand and everything, but that's the 5-match suspension in 3 months is a very light punishment for a man who gets a world title shot in 2 weeks.
Well, you know.
He was probably scheduled for vacation.
I'm sure he was. Then they showed, and Saturday nights aren't on the network, are they?
No, sadly.
This is sad. There's a good chance they will not hold up, but I recall these NWO Empty Arena segments being great comedy.
Well, this one was great comedy.
And this is what we saw here. So what they did was, for those of you who are not aware, they would go to, well, it'd be the building they were at, but they would do a match in the day before any of the fans came in. And it would be Hall and Nash wrestling and doing commentary. 2 anonymous geeks taking an ass kicking. They had an evil masked referee, which is a gimmick that must come back immediately. There needs to be a heel ref who gets fired, and the next week there's a ref under a mask and no one knows who he is. Mm-hmm. I realize it makes no sense. I don't care. And then they had like 3 NWO guys in the crowd cheering. And it was just Hall and Nash doing their stuff, making goofy jokes, entertaining themselves. And I remember it being hysterical. Maybe 40-year-old me would not enjoy it as much as 20-year-old me.
Oh, I don't know. I enjoyed this so much. The masked ref is so obviously Nick Patrick, of course.
Yes.
And Nick Patrick denies it. And he says, this man is in much better shape than I am.
No, backwards. I'm in much better shape
I'm in
than
better
that guy.
shape. Yeah.
Yes.
This is clearly Pee Wee Anderson.
Yes.
And by
That's
the
his
way,
claim.
when you say he's a masked referee, he's wearing a ski mask.
Yeah.
Didn't it have like
It's not a
the
luchador
little
mask.
ball on top?
Yeah, it had the little poof on the top, too.
Yes.
And he threw an awesome punch to one of the jobbers.
He
too.
openly punching jobbers and helping the NWO win. So Shivani showed this tape, said, we think that's you. And Patrick said, no, that's not me.
Patrick is furious at these allegations. He's furious that his fine has been lowered. He's threatening legal action.
These accusations make me sick.
Nick Patrick is amazing.
He should have been a manager.
I apologize for all of the mean things I said about Nick Patrick a year ago. He's turned the corner.
Mike Enos was scheduled to wrestle Randy Savage. But Eric Bischoff ambushed Savage on the ramp, and I do mean ambushed him with an interview. Savage was first like, dude, I have a match. Can this wait?
No, not even that. I don't want to know about this because it had to do with Elizabeth. He's trying to get out of it.
I see.
And so Bischoff says, I got to show you something. They have no Titantron.
No.
So Bischoff has hooked up a cathode ray tube television with like a VCR.
Rabbit ears.
This was not that long ago, but
This
this
is 19 years ago.
Yeah.
this TV, I swear, was larger than some cars we see on the roads today.
I mean, like, not the screen
No,
size.
the depth.
How far it went back.
And probably
yes.
weighed more, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely more than a smart car, for sure.
Yeah. So, what he has to show Savage here is a video love letter from his ex-wife, Elizabeth.
It was actually very sweet.
Elizabeth is sitting on a rope swing under a tree. I was ready to bury this in a deep, deep, deep ditch. That grave the Undertaker's been digging on Raw for like months. I was ready to dig that deeper and throw this in there.
Hey, it's big enough to throw that TV in there.
Notice that Vinny said he was ready to bury it in a deep dish.
I mumble. I'm a bad speaker.
I just
And you were thinking about pizza.
I wasn't.
As usual.
I hate you both. The point is, we've watched a lot of Elizabeth in this past year on Nitro, and she's always been terrible at everything.
true.
Hey, you know what? She was really good here.
She was very good at being a sad ex-wife.
She had the sad ex-wife of Randy Savage, and wondering where their marriage had gone wrong and how the relationship had failed.
I wonder where she channeled.
I'm not
this.
sure where this motivation came from. So she explained that she had tried to get Savage's attention and explain how she felt. She knew saying sorry would never be enough, and the actions she had taken, she thought she had taken out of anger. They proved she was a coward, and they just proved she was desperate for his attention. Here she was in a special place of both of them, alone again.
A swing set that he built for her.
That's right, that's right.
Who knew Savage was so handy?
She said she was truly sorry, begged Savage to forgive her for the things she had done and said to hurt him. She had to live with the bad choices she had made, including signing with Hulk, knowing how self-serving he could be. Again, where did she find that motivation?
What I thought was funny was she's apologizing for signing with Hulk. But apparently she's not apologizing for when she was in the Horsemen, and she gave them all of his money.
Well, she didn't mention that specifically, but she did apologize for everything she had done to hurt him and all the bad choices she had made.
I see.
I like falls under that very wide umbrella.
This was so hard to take. It really reminded me of a Cialis commercial.
All right.
I'm just saying.
It's not the impression I got. So eventually she says she's lost. She needs Randy, doesn't know how to reach him, but she feels the same way about him today as the day she said I do. And I went, oh.
Oh, man. And
they-
so did Randy.
And they go back to Randy. You ever seen Randy Savage on the verge of tears?
Well, we did here.
And again, I don't know where he got the motivation watching his ex-wife talking about their failed relationship, but Randy Savage was legit on the verge of tears. He stared at Bischoff with damp eyes and a blank, slightly open-mouthed stare. He stared at the TV. He stared at Bischoff. He couldn't speak. He paced back and forth. Bischoff was a complete asshole and would not leave the man alone, trying to force him to get an answer, trying to incite some emotional outburst. Savage goes backstage. Once he gets back to the curtain, the camera's following him, but he knows he's away from the people. Then he collapses a few times to his knees. He can barely walk in a straight line. Conveniently for him, there's a white limo waiting right at the door, and he gets in, and he climbs out, or he climbs in, and the limo drives away. Oh, this is heartbreaking.
It was very heartbreaking. Later in the show, Bischoff is apologizing to the Poffo family.
Yes.
Angelo and his wife. I'm sorry I had to do this, he said. I just needed an answer from Randy. All I could think was, what exactly were you trying to accomplish?
What answer would you get?
This man, you're hoping at Halloween Havoc, is going to take the world title back from the NWO. And so your plan is shortly before the biggest match, maybe in WCW history, you're going to blindside him with a sappy video from his ex-wife, who, by the way, in storyline, this is a key, she's under contract to Hulk Hogan. What's Randy going to do?
I don't know.
Join the NWO? She's under contract. Whatever the hell that means.
There again, Bischoff ended up with the NWO.
That's true.
Maybe it's just really good storytelling.
Maybe it is.
This may have been. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that at this point they knew Bischoff would be in the NWO.
Mm-hmm.
But you are right in that if he was with WCW, this would make no sense.
Right.
And you know who else noticed that? Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh.
They go to commercial. They come back. Bischoff sort of explains what's going on. And Heenan turns to him and asks, "What is wrong with you?" And he explains almost these exact words. "You did a great job of fucking with Savage's head going into that big match with Hogan."
That's right.
Eddie Guerrero versus Cheetah Kid.
Forget the match. This promo by Eddie.
Yes.
What an amazing babyface promo, vowing to kick DDP's butt.
I couldn't even not laugh at knowing where it was going.
That's what he said.
I'm going to kick your butt
Yeah.
because we're 12.
That was awesome.
It is amazing to think of Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero in WWE and where he was. Well,
Yeah, you know where he was here? He was
7.
Hector Guerrero.
it's kind
true.
of actually, yes.
He was. We had Hector on the show like 6-8 months ago. Sounds exactly like babyface 1996 Eddie.
So Cheetah Kid used a shell shock, which proves it was Ryback in a mask
I hadn't thought of that.
at 170 pounds.
Oh, he did gain a lot of weight since he was first on Tough Enough. That's for
He did.
sure.
He did.
You know, every wrestler has a gesture that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Cheetah Kid would spread his fingers wide and paw at the air.
Like a cat.
Like a cat. Cat paw.
Yeah. Why
Wow.
not?
Yeah. So
Guerrero won. Frog
they had
Splash.
they had a fine match. Eddie won with the frog splash.
There you go.
Lee Marshall.
Lee Marshall
Staggerly.
called in
Yeah.
from Minnesota to plug an upcoming show from Minneapolis.
Uh-huh.
Let's think about this for a second.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they sent him there a week early to promote on all of the local radio that Nitro was coming.
And hang flyers.
And he really did call, and hang
poster.
flyers. Yeah. I don't find that hard to believe at all.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, it was sponsored by 1-800-COLLECT, so I had to be on a phone call. But what he plugged the show from Minneapolis they were doing, and then for like 2 minutes they just told jokes about the weather. Mm-hmm. Like,
Sure.
where the hell? What's happening?
2-hour show, buddy.
Big Bubba versus Jeff Jarrett.
Dude, how can you think this show was boring with this match?
I got no idea.
The
Okay.
match was great.
Okay, first of all, Jarrett comes out, and of the people who had actually appeared in front of the crowd, he is by far the biggest star.
Absolutely.
And it's Memphis, so of course that makes sense. So he comes out, he's got that happy country music tune they used in WCW.
I love this song.
It is a great song. It's a great song. And he's got this huge ovation, and he's kissed the ring, looks like a total star. Bischoff's going off. He's so experienced, has traveled all over the country, worked all over the world, a great athlete. He pauses and says, "I hear you can't sing a lick,
Right.
but who cares?"
Yep.
And then that one phrase, he just completely, absolutely buried deep beneath the earth the entire fake Double J storyline on Raw.
But you know what? It's exactly what I said last week. Raw wasted so much time
Yes.
on Jeff Jarrett.
Yes.
They wasted 10 minutes on the storyline that, hey, he really can't sing.
Yes.
That's the first thing I thought. Who cares? You have 1 hour. They have 2. And you're spending 10 minutes on the fact that Jeff Jarrett can't sing a year ago,
Yeah.
18 months ago.
Yeah.
And Jarrett was awesome because it's Memphis. And so he's doing all these goofy spots like Bubba throws him in and he grabs the ropes and does the Fargo strut. And Memphis goes crazy. And all I could think was, this is the NWO era, and this is the last time this is going to work as a babyface. This goofy, strutting, wacky. But it worked here.
It worked and it was great. So they're having this very fun match, and they finally cut Jarrett off and get the heat on him, and they throw him outside. And Jimmy Hart, and we've seen Jimmy Hart manage probably 1,000 matches in the past year, and he doesn't get physically involved very much. But Jarrett gets thrown out, and Jimmy runs over and kicks him repeatedly, over and over and over again.
Stomping on him.
What the hell got a Jimmy Hart here? And then Jimmy turns to the camera and screams, "Memphis is my town!"
And it was
Because he worked there probably longer than Jarrett did, actually.
It was so great because first he's being chased, and that leads to Bubba getting the heat. So then Jimmy gets his revenge. Oh, you're going to chase me? I'm going to stomp you when you're down. So he stomps him, he does his promo, and then when Jarrett makes his big comeback, Jimmy jumps up on the apron, and Jarrett gets his revenge.
Oh, yeah.
He punches the guy, and Jimmy takes his pratfall upside down, feet caught in the ropes, drops right on his head bump, and the place goes nuts because Jimmy got his.
That's right. It was so excellent. And then in that melee, as the ref was checking on Jimmy, Bubba gets his hands on the megaphone, but he turns around and Jarrett hits a beautiful drop kick and kicks it right into his face. And the megaphone goes flying, and Jarrett covers him for the pin.
And then they play Jarrett's music again.
That was a win as well.
This was the best segment ever.
There actually was more, because Shivani interviewed Jarrett, and Jarrett got a hell of a promo.
Yeah.
Shivani announced that Ric Flair was out with an injury, therefore taking Flair's place against the Giant at Halloween Havoc would be Jeff Jarrett. And everyone cheers, and Jarrett cuts this great promo on the Giant. And Jarrett says, "I'm not the biggest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the tallest, but I'm the smartest wrestler alive." And I thought, there's ample evidence that that might be true.
Till 2002.
Now, I did hire wrong people, but he did a great job of getting other people to put their money at risk.
That's true.
While protecting his own.
That is true.
So in that essence, he's financially smart. Anyway, he vows to find a way to chop the Giant down, and he's going to put away the figure four and teach him respect for Ric Flair and all of WCW. Great segment. Great segment. Thank you, WWE, for promoting this man and making him look like a bigger star because of it. You fucking morons. Remarkable stupidity.
Then we got the main event, and what a main event.
I guess this was the main event, wasn't it?
It was. Booker T and Stevie Ray against my favorite tag team, the Faces of Fear. And what was awesome about it was, how many matches have we seen involving 400-pound men? And we say, this was a mean guy match.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Barbarian was over 300, but probably closer to 280, 290. So realistically, maybe there was one guy over 300, but most likely they were all under 300 pounds. This was a mean guy match. These dudes were mean. Pounded on each other. Oh, man, I love this.
Very early on, Chris Benoit and Steve Michael came out. They have an upcoming match against the Faces of Fear. And Mongo pointed at them and threatened to, and I quote, knock the lavas out of you.
Wow.
Don't know what that means, but it's what he said.
I can't wait to see that match.
So, I mentioned this last week, but I got to thinking. There's a lot of tag teams in WCW, and they appear to all be bad guys. Harlem Heat, heels. Faces of Fear, heels. Horsemen, heels. Outsiders, heels. Nasty Boys, heels. The only babyface tag teams I could come up with was, I guess, Public Enemy.
They're baby faces.
They dance a lot, all right.
High voltage.
High voltage, but they suck.
Right.
And the Steiners will be cheered, although if you watch their matches, they're not really good guys. They were just so awesome, everyone cheered for them.
But they are baby faces.
All right. But the point is, we are left with a lot of heel tag teams that are fighting each other just because they have to fight somebody. And what this results in is no heroes, just a collection of rowdy badasses knocking the stuffings out of each other.
Yeah.
Which is, after all, what I want from a professional wrestling show. So yes, it was great.
Let's think about the idea of Chris Benoit and Mongo against Ming and Barbarian. First off, Benoit against either man is going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's just guaranteed. Second, Mongo sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was an NFL player, and he thinks he's a tough guy.
Right.
It's quite possible.
Ming and Barbarian were not football players, but they are tough guys.
Oh, yes.
And if anything goes wrong, someone's going to want to prove they're the tough guy. I am more excited for this match than any match that I can think of. Benoit and Mongo against Ming and the Barbarian. Is that at Havoc? Because if it is, we got to watch it. Or on Nitro next week would be better, but yeah, there's an amazing spot where Sherry is yelling at Ming,
Thank you.
and Ming does the big E hip swivel at Sherry.
Yeah.
I had no idea Meng was such a player.
There's this huge belly-to-belly off the top rope. I was so sad when the NWO came out, and this match just ended.
They were having a great match. And yeah, that's what happened. The Hall and Nash came through the crowd. The two teams stopped fighting each other to defend themselves from a possible attack. The NWO backed down, and that was that, so there was no finish. I also like, by the way, there was this man, a Polynesian pro wrestler. I believe they said he was from Tonga specifically. Called himself the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And he never changed that name.
No.
The Barbarians were not from the South Pacific.
But he was a barbarian.
He was a barbarian.
And as far as the barbarians, he was the barbarian.
He was the most barbaric.
He was the most barbaric of the Tongans.
Yes. Anyway, that was awesome too.
I'll tell you
What bored you on the show?
Again, look over the match listings. Good grief.
but I watched it. I'm sure the match listings would bore me, but
I watched this Sunday before Raw.
well, that's true. I'll tell you some
I watched
comedy.
it before Raw. Watched on
Bischoff's
next, and nearly killed me.
Bischoff's weekly tough guy serious speech about the state of WCW. It is now comedy. It was great the first time. It was pretty good the second time. Now it's funny because they never succeed, and the fans are chanting WCW more and more. They're on the way down. He had another one this week. And then Hogan came out for his goofy speech.
This was
First of all, there's something else Bischoff mentioned. And I don't know where this fits in with what his character was supposed to be doing behind the scenes, but he talks about Savage and what happened earlier. He promises if Savage finds in his heart to fight, he's going to show up, and Hogan, that's it for you. But if he doesn't, we may have seen the last of the Macho Man. I thought, okay, so your plan to promote this show is to tease people that half of the main event may not show up.
Yep.
All right.
This is the show also. I will give it this. This is the most over the NWO has ever been. When they hit the ring, the people were losing their minds.
Which was very sad because they interrupted such a great match.
Right.
So, yeah, Hogan came out for his promo, and he's rambling on for a while. And as he is rambling, the Nasty Boys come out on their own.
Two fatties just bounce into the ring with contracts in their hands.
With NWO shirts that they looked like they had just grabbed them from the merchandise stand. And they had contracts.
By the way, Liz was out with them, and they basically assigned the Giant to be garbage interference. So when the fans started
Yes.
pelting the ring, the Giant would be able to cover her up.
There was a point in here, we've seen water bottles and even full cups of soda hit the ring and stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody threw like a leather jacket into the ring. Something large and black and fabricy. I don't know what that was. And wrestlers like stared at it in the kitchen.
Maybe it
out of
was
the
a pelt of some sort. Is
Might
that
have been.
possible?
Well,
They're in
Bear fur?
Memphis.
What was that?
They were in Memphis.
Sure. So the Nasty Boys come out and they get in the ring and they greet Hall and Nash. And Hall and Nash, I'm actually sad they did the breakup right afterwards because Hall and Nash did the very, very fake, hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you. Like they're friendly. And as soon as the Nasties turn their back, they're like throwing their thumb at them and just leering at them. Who are these posers in here? This is just appalled these men are at their party. So the Nasty Boys have their contracts and they're complaining to Hulk, all that stuff you said about the Learjets and the limousines, that's not in here. And the money, the decimal points in the wrong spot. What's going on, Hulk? And Hulk says, well, hey, let me look at that, guys. I'm sure that's a mistake. And he looks at the contract and says, well, hey, I never signed this. And that means you're not in the NWO. And that means you should be wearing our colors. Get them, boys! And the beatdown was on.
Eric Bischoff is so appalled when they beat up the Nasty Boys. And all I can think is, these two fatties were ungrateful pricks
Yeah.
who on national television tried to hold up Hulk Hogan for more money. And so they were beaten. And Bischoff just can't believe
Not
this.
only that, they turned down WCW.
That's right.
They were not recruited into the NWO. They were campaigning to join.
Yeah.
So here they are now. They have turned their back on that entire company, and then the NWO also turned them back. And you know we're going to see the Nasty Boys as baby faces in the near future.
Eric should have celebrated this beating.
Yeah, so good for them. And Heenan pointed this out. He said they got what they deserved, which is true. So that went on for a long time. Hogan starts to rant about what he's going to do to Savage. Says Savage's marriage ended because Liz has been dreaming about me. And again, I forget the exact report. I watched the Savage documentary, and Hogan was talking about it. And Hogan said something about part of the reason he had a falling out with Savage was Savage blamed Hulk and Linda for talking Liz into leaving him.
That's true.
Yes. So again, this quote-unquote fake wrestling angle was very close to home. Not so much the dreaming about Hulk part. I hope not. So that went on forever. And
Nasty's never moved again after this beating.
No.
May still be laying there in Memphis right now.
Outsiders took over the announce desk. Hall once again referred to Harlem Heat as hillbillies, said they were country bumpkins from Texas. Listen, they're from Texas. There are no country bumpkins. And finally, they closed with a recap of Liz's video and Savage nearly weeping and leaving the building.
The other thing that I want to get in, Hogan blatantly, on 2 or 3 separate occasions, made sure to mention that he was filming his movie, The Three Ninjas, brother.
That's right. He goes, I'm
Again
leaving from
and
here to
again.
Hollywood to film 3 ninjas. And then he insinuated that Liz was, in fact, his sex slave.
That's true.
He did. That was Nitro. I thought it was a good show.
I enjoyed it.
I fell asleep twice.
Maybe that was your problem. You were too tired.
And then I rewound and then fell asleep again.
When
Wow.
on Sunday did you watch this?
Right after the game.
So mid-afternoon.
Well, you know,
Came in at 1 p.m. our time.
it's you had to be up very early for church.
Sure.
Weren't you?
Yeah, but
Did you
See?
Did you get kicked out of church?
No.
Fell asleep during the sermon.
Found about that show you were doing?
We had a great segment backstage. William Regal welcomes us to his office. Looks in the camera and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my office here in NXT. I am joined by Dana Brooke and Emma. I've them to be here." And Regal was so unbelievably great in this segment. He is the best commissioner in the world. He was fantastic. So he explains to them, last week, you came out and made a spectacle
The
of
hell's with your
yourselves.
audio?
You ruined my signing with Asuka. You embarrassed her and you embarrassed me. And they laughed about this and said, yeah, we did. She ran out of the ring with a between her legs and she gave us that smile. She smiles like a hyena. So he says, I've got something to show you. And it is apparently footage of Asuka in Japan. And he holds his laptop up so they can see it, but we can't.
Yes.
And we hear screams. We hear grunts and groans.
Could have been faces of
It might have been. We hear flesh striking other flesh. There's and on the screen. And we can only imagine what Asuka's doing to these poor women in these Japanese rings. And slowly, a look of desperate terror comes over the face of Emma and Dana. And Emma can finally only bring herself to say, good luck.
There you go.
All right, that started slow,
Yeah.
but it finished
That was a good
strong.
Alrighty. Nitro.
Nitro, number 58, also October 21st, 1996. You see, it's a theme.
How about that?
It's a theme we do here on
Yeah.
these Monday nights.
Tuesday.
I am thinking of taking all
Yeah.
of next year off so that then we could just do 20 years ago this week. We'll talk about that later. I don't need to hit the fans up with any more change.
Yeah.
This change thing is very distressing.
They've
to them.
already had their feathers ruffled. So let them get settled. So Larry Zbyszko opens the show with an impassioned plea to Randy Savage. And this is not an exact quote, but it's close. He warns him, do not let your ex-wife back into your life so she can take all your money again. And all I can say is that this sounded like a man who knew of what he spoke. This sounded near to Larry's heart. Bobby Eaton versus Chris Jericho. No more Earl of Eaton. He was out of the Blue Bloods. He's back to being beautiful Bobby.
Because it was very important to wrap up that storyline.
Apparently not. They mentioned that he got kicked out, and he's back now.
Can you imagine? They did a storyline to kick Bobby Eaton, who never did anything, out of the Blue Bloods, where he would continue to never do anything.
Still do nothing.
Oddly enough, Tony.
Why did they bother?
Oddly enough, Tony said he actually had been divorced from the Blue Bloods. Was his actual word.
Okay.
Divorced. They're just talking about Savage.
It
and-
doesn't mean they were married.
I understand that, Brian. Just putting an exclamation point on this Savage and Liz thing.
I see.
So, Fake, Sting, and Six show up in the crowd. They have an NWO banner, and they're just standing there. And they did introductions for the match, and they're about to wrestle. And Patrick comes over to Jericho and says something. And Jericho looks right into the camera, and you can tell he is highly, highly, highly annoyed. And then they go to commercial. And I'm sure that what happened was they did a commercial break and didn't tell the wrestlers they'd be doing one. So Jericho comes out there, he's all hyped and ready to go, and has to be told, now you stand in this corner for 4 minutes.
The best thing about where Fake Sting and Xbox were, right as they come out of the...
Who?
I'm sorry, 6.
What do you call him?
Xbox.
Xbox.
Oh.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
much better.
Actually, X-Pox would be better than X-Pac. Because then at least it sounds like a dread disease.
I see. Anyway,
He's got X-Pox. He ain't gonna make it.
Everything itches. Anyway, they come out of their, for lack of a better term, hole in the wall. Excuse me. And it says NWO over there. And they're right there in the stands. And in front of them is a middle-aged lady and her elderly father, probably
Yes.
in his 80s.
Yes.
No hair, in a wheelchair, feverishly eating popcorn, and has no time for the skinny geek behind him.
Are you sure this wasn't Hulk Hogan?
I'm positive.
All right, we'll get to him.
No, I can verify what Craig is saying. I saw the man as well.
Did you see Hulk Hogan?
Well, yeah.
How can a man have hair and look older?
Dude, he looked 100.
Yeah.
You know how old he was at the time?
40-something?
43.
Yes. I just turned 40.
43.
43, right here.
Yeah. We'll get to the Hulkster.
He was in better shape than you, Craig. I'll give him that.
I have better hair.
Not on this one.
No, mine's
They've given
real.
him a wig.
Mine's real.
He looked like... I don't know what he looked like. Father Time.
So, the commercial break ends. The bell rings. They all just stand there. The bell rings again. Nick Patrick checks with somebody and says, "Okay, wrestle."
Patrick was back to being a complete idiot ref this week,
Right.
as we'll get to. Although it wasn't his fault later.
So the gimmick here was they did not have this commercial break planned out for the wrestlers or the referee or the announcers, and then they didn't know for sure when they were back on the air. This is all pretty subtle, and you may not have noticed if you were just sitting on your couch drinking a beer watching the show, but WCW was never not WCW.
By the way, how come they have two announce teams? They have one for hour one and they have one for hour two, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hour two crew is way back in the middle of nowhere in a big fancy set.
Mm-hmm.
And they thrust Shivani and Larry into two little chairs at ringside.
Right.
Why?
I don't have an answer.
Like they're in Ring of Honor or something.
Yeah.
I think they just want nothing to do with Larry. So get him as far away from us as possible.
That might be.
Did Heenan and Zbyszko have heat? I'm asking a question.
I don't know.
Because if there were two
Heenan
people...
and Mongo had heat. They had to work together for a year.
Yeah, and it was spectacular television. Just saying.
So they had a fun match.
Can we get through this goddamn match?
They did a bunch of mat wrestling. They did some brawling on the floor.
Jericho won and it was boring.
Even took a backdrop on the floor. They traded some big moves. Jericho won with a missile dropkick. Everyone remember those words.
Yes.
Missile dropkick. So Jericho wins. I also like, by the way, Jericho was throwing these overhand slaps to the chest, and he's throwing them as hard as he can to try to make the loudest noise possible, of course. And then his aim is off on one, and one of them catches Eaton right in the face.
Yeah.
Bad times. So the gimmick for this show was the winner would get to do an interview with Tony Schiavone on the floor. So Schiavone's interview...
What a win.
I know, that doesn't sound like much of a prize, I realize. So Jericho notes, 6 is watching up in the stands, and in 6 days, I'm going to take him apart. The NWO is undefeated. I'm going to be the first man from WCW to get a win over the NWO when I face 6 at Halloween Havoc.
That was a good one.
I just like when he had his line, and his name is 6, and I wrestled him in 6 days, and Schiavone was very impressed by this line.
That's right. X-Pox. That's going to be his new name.
Speaking of, it just dawned on me watching this show that when you add 1, 2, and 3 together, it makes 6.
Took him 19 years.
Yeah.
About that.
Yep.
Yeah. And he was the 6th man.
Yeah, that's why I thought they named him.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think that is why they named him that, actually.
That's what they said. But then I added up 1, 2, and 3. I got out my calculator and slide rule. And sure enough, it was 6.
I picture you have 1 stone in a pile,
Right.
and then 2 stones in a pile, and
If
3
it
stones in a
was
pile.
so
You made one big pile of
obscure.
stones.
I know.
Okay. Let's
I
move
know.
on.
And a Rey Mysterio Jr. video package set to
Music.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Like, it was
Straight out of a late 80s martial arts movie.
Yeah, it was 1980s rock, but it was almost like an orchestra set to it, like a guitar solo, but it had a dramatic build to crescendos.
Yeah, it was a martial arts film.
Yes.
Babyface song.
Progressive rock, babyface, I don't know.
It'd be like Dream Theater.
I actually thought of that, but I was not familiar enough. I went with Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yeah, it works too.
Yeah.
I went with Bloodsport.
They're not a prog
These
rock
are all
band.
wins.
Let's talk
I
about
like all
Jimmy
three of these.
Graffiti. I don't want to be here all night.
Jimmy Del Rey.
How is it we cut the shows we watch in half,
I don't know, Vinny.
and somehow you're worried about... So now is the night you're worried about going long.
Well, we have spent 15 minutes on the first 5 minutes of Nitro.
So I'm
And
watching...
it's not even like there's anything to talk about.
So I'm watching this...
And I could talk a lot about Jimmy Graffiti.
Yeah, I can too. So, yes, Jimmy Graffiti comes out on Nitro. I'm looking at this guy. He appears to be the long-lost third member of Public Enemy.
He really did.
He has horrible gear and a bad haircut. And he's about to wrestle Dean Malenko. I'm thinking, what in the hell is this? Where do they find this guy? What's going to happen?
You know what he looked like to me? He looked like a man who decided he was going to be one of Public Enemy for Halloween.
Yes.
However, he was concerned that if WCW found out, they would sue him.
I see.
And so he decided to call himself Jimmy Graffiti.
Yeah. And then they started to wrestle.
Right.
And holy Christ, Jimmy Graffiti was good. He was really, really good.
This was a former, in more ways than one, heavenly body.
That is true. He was not trim. He was not super lean, but he could go. So I looked it up. I'm assuming the two of you looked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Jimmy Del Rey,
That's
Yeah.
right.
the former heavenly body.
I already said that.
Who apparently just died in December.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
52 years old, heart attack.
I do remember hearing about that now.
My wife used to retch in terror when he would do that shake when he was in the heavenly body.
Excuse me, you would retch in terror.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I know your wife.
She would hide her eyes.
Okay, that's better.
It made her physically ill to watch him gyrate.
He didn't do any gyrating here.
No.
He did. There were points where his hockey jersey would fly up over his gut and he had to pull it back down. So as noted, he was not the picture of bodybuilding health, but God, this guy was good.
He was also in the ring, Vinny, with Dean Malenko, who is the new best wrestler of the 90s.
I can't argue with that.
Another guy I underrated at the time. I always knew he was good, but I didn't realize just how great this man was. He was unbelievable.
He was
I believe
tremendous.
I say that every week. Speaking of redundancy.
So Graffiti made a comeback. He went up top. He tried a missile dropkick.
Yes,
Dean countered it, caught him in a powerbomb, hit the cloverleaf for the win.
he learned something from the first match. If I can hit this missile dropkick, I'll beat Dean Malenko.
That's right.
What was most notable about this match was fake Sting was shown in the crowd. And Larry saw him and said, "It's Stink."
He sure did.
He sure did.
It was with the New World Order.
Shivani called him out on this, and he explained it. Yes, you see.
Can you imagine if he would have said, "It's Stink," and Tony would have said, "Larry, you're wrong."
That, I'd have died.
I literally would have died. I would be dead right now
It's
if
Stink.
that would have happened.
It's Stink, and he's wrong. Diamond Dallas Page versus Craig Pittman. My favorite part of this was Pittman makes his entrance, and
Yes.
Page is doing that thing where he slouches in the corner with his arms in the ropes, and Pittman turns to the crowd and salutes them, and he turns to Page and gives him the best stink eye of all time.
See, I thought you were going to go with Diamond comes out with his generic Nirvana music. And then Craig Pittman comes out, and there's massive amounts of pyro.
Yes,
Fireworks.
Yeah.
for Pittman.
For
American
Pittman.
hero.
Sure.
Every day is the 4th of July for Craig Pittman.
None for Dallas.
All I know,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's this thing that WCW does. Kind of like that Bobby Eaton storyline. Like, who could possibly care? It is so amazing to see the slowest, slow build storyline
Yes.
about Nick Patrick and Teddy Long.
They just keep arguing.
This has been going on forever. You watch Raw nowadays, and even slow build storylines are over in 3 weeks. This has been going on forever. The only one close is Sherry and Colonel Parker.
That's
Another
worse.
storyline no one could possibly care about.
Yeah, so we'll get to the chase. Page 1 with a diamond cutter. Okay, we're good?
That's it.
All right.
Oh, there was the Nick Patrick stuff.
Shivani then interviewed Nick Patrick, who again denied being the NWF referee.
He did the same promos last week, just shorter.
It was. The funniest spot was Paige uses a neutralizer like Cesaro uses, and he makes a cover, and Pittman kicks out, and Paige, who remember was 6'5" and 270 or so, goes flying in the air and lands on Patrick's back. So now the guy has a neck brace and a bad back.
What I got out of this is Patrick is talking to Shivani because Shivani is accused him of being the NWO referee, and Patrick does the same line about, I'm in much better shape than that man. And then he goes, you shouldn't be making these accusations, Tony, because we all know what happened to the last guy that made these accusations. All I could think was, no, we don't. We have no idea where Gene Okerlund went. It's never been explained. He just vanished. The answer is his contract expired. He'll be back soon.
Well, there you go. They showed the NWO laying out Ric Flair backstage 2 weeks ago. And then Jeff Jarrett calling out the Giant in Flair's place. Said Flair will be due for shoulder surgery soon.
True.
Jeff Jarrett versus Ron Studd.
This was great because Jarrett is facing the Giant at Halloween Havoc.
Yes.
And so he faced another Giant here.
We have seen Ron Studd on Nitro 3 times. All 3 times, he has been wrestling someone who's about to have a match with the Giant. And then he lost.
You know what?
He's a 7-foot TV jobber.
All 3 times he's been carried to a decent match.
I timed this match.
This was okay.
It was fine.
It went 129.
It was a fine 129.
I'm sure if I had a 7-foot man who was passable, I could find something better to do than have him lose on TV every week.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he was passable. He had a minute 29 with Jeff Jarrett, which was passable. And the other great match he had was with Chris Benoit,
I'm trying to remember. There was a middle
who
one.
could get a great match out of you.
Probably Randy Savage, who was also great.
Yeah.
I see your point. So before the match, Flair comes out, and he wants to make sure that Jarrett is worthy of taking his spot. And his method of determining Jarrett's worthiness is to measure his strut.
Sure.
So for like 5 minutes, they just take turns strutting back and forth.
This is why Ric Flair is not at the Performance Center.
This is what he would teach people?
Yeah.
Which I'd be fine, by the way.
Oh, you want to give
Can you
ZZ a
imagine-
job? Let me have him for a while.
Strutting
ZZ,
101.
show me your strut. All right, he's out.
Can you imagine Ric
Too
Flair teaching Enzo Amore to strut?
No.
I can't either, but I bet it'd be awesome. So they go back and forth a while, and it's funny because at first the crowd loves them both, but then they decide and they love Ric Flair more. A reasonable decision. But they love Ric Flair more, and so they're going to boo Jarrett because he is not Ric Flair.
Makes sense.
But eventually, Flair decides he likes what he sees, and they go to face for a bit, and somebody, I think it was Larry says that they're going to check to see who has the bigger nose. And Flair shakes Jarrett's hand, and he leaves, apparently approving of his replacement.
Hell of a vertical suplex during this match.
Oh, jeez.
Jarrett suplexed the 7-foot man.
And held him up. It wasn't like a snap suplex.
It was not like he just flipped him over and let gravity take over. He powered the 7-footer up.
All right, now I know a lot of you are mad at me for my decision to remove the current Raw report, but I'm asking for a favor. Can anyone provide me with Jeff Jarrett's WCW music? This is my favorite music in wrestling right now. All I want to do is watch Jeff Jarrett wrestle and win so I can hear his victory music.
Sure.
I searched for it on YouTube, and all that comes up is his horrendous, slap-nuts, Chosen One, Kid Rock ripoff music, which sucks.
Was that worse than his TNA song?
Oh, by a billion miles.
Okay, then.
I mean, they're both terrible.
I remember he had a Kid Rock ripoff song, but I don't remember the actual song itself. And I agree this music is much better. So Shivani then interviewed Jarrett. Jarrett's talking about history and respect, and the whole time he's talking, the fans are looking over to the side. Like, what's going on? What was going on was Ric Flair came back. Because Ric Flair's a better promo than Jeff Jarrett. He's also a better wrestler than Jeff Jarrett, but he had a bad shoulder. So Flair takes over and goes crazy, and he's ranting about how the NWO fought dirtier than the Horsemen, and that's what really pissed him off. He's going to take himself out of surgery to be in Jarrett's corner against the Giant of Vegas. And he cuts this promo on behalf of Jarrett. Everyone's happy, and they cut to the stands where Giant is up there just watching. That is so unapologetically a ripoff.
Says right there that's Jeff Jarrett's 6th WCW theme. 6th!
Try his first.
It's not up here.
Oh. So someone out there is aware that he had 6 themes but didn't put 1 through 5 up?
Maybe they didn't have
He
them.
only put that one?
Could be.
That is terrible. I'm sincere when I say this. This next segment was my favorite part of the show.
Absolutely.
I would like to mention, by the way, that Flair's promo was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you.
I smiled so big when I got done watching this next match.
And it's amazing, because when I tell you who was wrestling here, you would think this is fast-forward material.
I marked out.
I did too.
It was awesome.
You see, Lex Luger wrestled a man named Roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the story of the Rochester Roadblock?
I know this is him.
Do you know the story?
No.
Okay.
Apparently not.
In 1987, the Rochester Roadblock decided he wanted to be a wrestler. And apparently he went to a local show that was being headlined by Hulk Hogan versus the One Man Gang.
Explains a lot.
And somehow he caught up with the Hulkster and he begged and pleaded for him to train him or something. I don't know. And the Hulkster blew him off. So that night, a Rochester is in the crowd. And the main event begins. And the Rochester Roadblock jumps the barricade.
Oh, no.
Gets in the ring. Takes down the one-man gang. He's trying to put a beating on him before security shows up and drags his ass out of there. That is how he got into the business.
I had never heard that before.
That is a true story.
Everybody do it.
That's right. Everyone find the one-man gang and beat him up.
He's in a grave, isn't he?
I don't think so.
No, the Roadblock is still alive.
No, I'm talking about the gang.
The gang.
Gang's dead, right?
He was at least around to wrestle Larry Sweeney, and I realize Larry Sweeney has also left us. But if you've ever seen the Larry Sweeney one-man gang strut off, it was better than Jarrett and Flair. I
The
promise.
one-man gang is alive.
Yes.
I apologize, Mr. Gang.
So let's talk more about Roadblock.
Let's.
Parents, Mr. and Mrs. Block, had a son named him Road. He comes out.
Well, they named him Rochester.
Not here.
His middle name was Road.
He as of this show, as a WCW viewer, all I know is his name is Roadblock. He comes out. He is a very large human being.
It's like you took Balls Mahoney, packed on 50 more pounds, and then shot him up another 8 inches.
He is about 6'6" or so.
Yeah.
Are you aware, by the way, that one-man gang once was known as Crusher Broomfield?
No.
That's a great name. Go on.
So Roadblock, he does facially and with the hair, he resembles a even fatter Balls Mahoney a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And as noted, he was quite tall. This man is easily 400 pounds.
Easy.
And he comes out, and his gimmick is, he's a roadblock.
Right.
So he's carrying
A barricade.
a road barricade over his shoulders
Right.
for no reason.
Right.
I don't know what he was going to do with it at some point, but he's got it. He's got this barricade.
If there was a drink spilled, he would be Johnny on the
No
spot.
one stand here
Right.
where
And
I'm
put
putting the roadblock.
Right. Do not slip and fall, fans.
His singlet, from the waist up, it is orange and white, like a reflective safety vest.
Much like the aforementioned barricade.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yes. From the waist down, it is black with yellow stripes.
No. Only up the inside of the thigh or the stripes. On the outside, single
Dotted
solid lines.
Dotted, there was like There's parts of it yellow lines, parts dotted white lines.
Right.
Like a road.
He was his
That's
thighs,
the gimmick.
His thighs and his calves were a 3-lane highway.
Yeah, yeah. So he comes out to do this match, and they start wrestling, and for a long time, it is two big, clumsy galoots clobbering each other, and it's sloppy and not very good. We get an Arn Anderson inset promo. He vows, he says he knew Lex was able to say, "I quit. I heard it with my own ears." He said, "I'm going to make you say I quit again." So they go back to the match, and Roadblock is working over Luger. He goes for a powerbomb, and I don't know what happened, but I would like to think, and I believe it's totally believable to me, that Roadblock set Luger up for this powerbomb, and Lex said, "Fuck you, I'm not taking a fucking powerbomb." And so Roadblock let him go, and whipped him to the ropes and hit a terrible clothesline.
This match was incredible.
It was amazing to behold. So they go to the finish. Lex is running wild. He power slams the big man. He pops up to his feet. He starts doing that pose with his pecs where he says, "I'm going to rack this fucker." The crowd's going nuts. And he goes to rack the 400-pound man, and he gets him halfway up, and he almost gets him, and then he slips out, and Roadblock collapses to the mat.
Drops him.
Everyone's heartbroken. And Lex has, "I'm going to give it another try." And he picks the big fella up, and he goes for the rack again, and he almost has it, and he drops him again. And Roadblock slips off and falls to the mat. I don't know if that was their plan.
It was not their plan.
No.
It looked, because I don't think either one of them, frankly, is creative enough to have thought of this. But when he tried and failed, and I thought, just hit him with a forearm and pin him, dude. But Lex said no.
Lex puts his hands on his hips. He looks around at all of the fans.
Yes.
He shakes his head, partly in disappointment in himself,
Right.
and partly disappointed that this fucker is so fat. And then he says, "One more time."
That's right.
Lex says, "I have one thing as a wrestler. It's being very strong. I'm going to lift this man on my shoulders." And he picked him up, and he racked this motherfucker.
It was so amazing because he got him up and he was just a tad bit off balance. And as he scooped him over his shoulders, the big man's head and arms and shoulders started to shift, and Luger almost lost him. But he took a step sideways and caught him and held him there like a champion.
That's right.
And he could have racked him. The man submitted and he dropped him, but no. He held him there a little longer to show the world, "I got this fatty up." The fans go nuts. Eric Bischoff screams.
Bischoff screams. The fans go nuts. I swear to God, I sat up in my chair and started pumping my fists back and forth.
Absolutely.
It was such a moment of triumph and vindication. He overcame adversity and he won.
Yeah.
He lifted a fat man.
This was so awesome.
This was the best. Just the best.
Never give up.
Yeah,
This should go in Lex Luger's WWE Hall of Fame ceremony video.
absolutely.
That was everything I love about pro wrestling right there.
Yeah. That right there, that match.
Yes. Lee Marshall called in from Phoenix to talk about the sunset he was watching.
It's all true.
American Males versus Harlem Heat.
Let me talk about this match.
Before you talk about the match, as they're making their entrances, Bischoff is, doing baseball scores and whatever. He mentions the Atlanta Braves. He congratulates the Atlanta Braves on their big win over New York. He pauses and says, "We're making that a habit around here." And that line slew Bobby Heenan. And I have been watching Bobby Heenan for almost 3 decades now. I've seen Bobby Heenan crack up a lot of people. This is the only time I remember somebody else cracking up Bobby Heenan. Heenan thought that line was hysterical. So that's that. Brian, describe the match.
So they come out for this match, and first off, Nick Patrick, our main man Nick Patrick's the referee. He's got a neck brace on again. He raises the belts over his head to display them because it's a title match, and suddenly he has to put the belts down.
They're too heavy.
His neck hurts so bad he can't lift the belts over his head. Again, why is this man a referee?
Because WCW in storyline is incompetent.
Well, I've been praising Patrick for a long time. It's time to correct the market, so to speak. Heat on Bagwell forever. Hall and Nash are watching. Riggs runs wild. Hot tag. Punches Colonel Parker. Booker T hits his flying kick. Booker T covers Scotty Riggs.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick Patrick drops down to count. Now, granted, it's Bagwell's fault, because Bagwell is supposed to try to jump in but not get there in time.
I guess.
This idiot cannot time this. He leaps in and he successfully breaks up the pin, just as Patrick is counting to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I realize it was not Nick Patrick's fault, but how long has this man been refereeing?
Long time.
A long damn time. Nick Patrick counts the pin, and time stops.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Bischoff, who is the man in charge, says, no, that was not the finish. Patrick stands there. He looks at one man. He looks at the other man. Everybody starts to talk to each other, and then Patrick rings the bell.
Yep.
Can you not just make a decision in the heat of the moment? Did you count a pin or not? He stalled, he hemmed, he hawed, and then he finally made a decision. This match, this finish, sucked.
You're right. The only thing is, I'm not entirely sure it was Bagwell's fault.
It was Bagwell's fault. They showed a replay.
Yeah, but the replay was, we'll do this illegal move and make the cover, but no one thought, well, who's going to take out Bagwell? So Bagwell is standing there like, the rest counting 1, the rest counting 2. Then he decides, why would I be so stupid to stand here and watch my partner get pinned?
So move a little slower, you idiot.
He didn't even do the gimmick where he, fake got his foot caught, in the
He
rope.
sold it like he thought it was a shoot.
Yeah.
Like at the last minute, he decided, holy shit, I got to get in there.
Yes.
And then he went as fast as he could, and he screwed it up. This sucked.
It sure did.
The match
Thankfully.
the match was great until the finish.
Well, it was great when Booker T and Bagwell were in.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what's really great.
Your new favorite
Yes,
team.
sir.
The Powers of Pain versus the Fantastics on Nitro
And this was fantastic.
in 1996. Bobby is talking about how Ming and Barbarian's ancestors were cannibals who swung from trees.
Yeah.
1996, everybody. Bischoff sees no hope for the Fantastics. And why would you? Fantastics actually get a comeback on the Barbarian, who has it set up in his mind, I'm not taking no bumps. And if you try, I'm not going to take it.
He barely worked.
They were killed. Ming and Barbarian won.
Dismembered, really.
This ruled. And then when it was over, they announced that yes, at Halloween Havoc, Ming and the Barbarian are facing Mongo and Chris Benoit. I am more excited for that match than anything at Hell in a Cell, anything at any UFC in the foreseeable future. I cannot wait for that match.
The beating that these two men put on two other human beings was awesome.
Yeah, they're the best team ever.
At one point, Ming lifted up Bobby Fulton for a pile driver, and then he hit it, and he was having so much fun. He was visibly giggling.
Just sat there laughing. I just dropped that guy in his neck. I like when Ming backdropped, I'm not sure which one it was, honestly. Fulton stopped dyeing his hair. So you got two brown haired dudes in there. But Ming backdrops one, and Barbarian catches him for a powerbomb. And when I say catches him for a powerbomb, it's not like he put his hands on his legs and guided him down. No, he caught him and then powerbombed him. That was great. The Fantastics made a comeback. Fantastics, by the way, the oldest men to be a Pretty Boy tag team since we saw Rock and Roll Express in the show like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But their comeback included a solo missile dropkick and a double team missile dropkick. But the Faces of Fear no-sold all this. Then they do the finish. Here's how they won. Tommy Rogers tried to body press on Barbarian, and Barbarian caught him. He's holding them there in essentially, not even body slam position, a follow-away slam position, just holding him horizontal. And Ming comes up from behind him, and he kicks Tommy in the head. And then they pinned him.
Yeah.
That was the finish.
I've been telling y'all forever. Best team in the world.
I'm seeing the light.
Thank you.
And before we move on, as long as we are acknowledging tragic passings, Tommy Rogers also passed away just a few months ago here.
Yeah, that's right.
From this point forward, this Nitro got actually very depressing. But that match was great. So Bischoff is talking about exciting information, and he's surprised. He's saying the NWO Sting is going to wrestle soon, but we have a surprise. He may as well have said, stay tuned, Sting is going to come out and kick that guy's ass. He apologizes to Randy Savage for showing the disturbing Elizabeth video last week. Then they re-aired the Elizabeth video. It's a hollow apology. He promised another video later to show how low-class Hollywood Hogan was. Mr. JL versus NWO Sting. Most of the NWO came out at ringside to watch. So I'm watching this NWO Sting, and we mentioned this before. He's a really, really big athletic guy, and I realized he went to Japan and worked a lot over there, but once this thing stopped, he disappeared. Was he any good?
He could play a passable fake Sting,
Okay.
but the real Sting was significantly better.
Well, I'm sure that's true. So, anyway, he squashes Mr. JL. He puts him in the Scorpion, and the key is, when he puts him in the Scorpion, his back is to the ramp. That means he can't see when the real Sting comes out in the first incarnation of the Crow Sting.
That's right. All black.
All black, long black hair, white face paint with the black markings around the eyes.
He actually didn't have long black hair. He had medium-length brown hair.
Okay.
Like AJ
And
Styles.
He looked remarkably like AJ Styles.
Yeah.
That's all I could think when I saw him.
All right. And he comes out, no baseball bat. He just beats the holy hell out of NWO Sting. The NWO just watches all this. And Sting goes through all his moves, and he puts NWO Sting. And the fans, by the way, it took them a while to catch on. When he first came out, they didn't recognize Sting because he didn't have the colorful makeup and the tights and the big muscles. He's just a guy in a trench coat with white face paint. Of course, they caught on for sure when he hit all his moves. And he puts fake Sting in the Scorpion. At that point, the NWO decides, all right, that's enough. And they get in the ring to put a stop to things.
Well, Bischoff is noting that it's funny because Bischoff is so excited that Sting is in the building. So Sting gets in the ring and he's beating up fake Sting, and Bischoff is stunned that the NWO is not attacking Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, so that's your plan? You're just going to let Sting go out there and be eaten alive by all of the wolves? You didn't have backup for Sting?
Guess
Like,
not.
what are you expecting to happen, you idiot? He's stunned they don't go after the guy. So now he thinks, oh man, Sting is in black. Maybe he's part of the NWO.
That's right. So they gave him a sales pitch. One by one, they just spoke about the benefits of joining the NWO. He is just standing there staring intently with a smile on his face, an evil smile on his face. I like when DiBiase says, if you join the NWO, we will treat you like family. 2 minutes after they allowed one of their family members to get killed to prove a point.
Well,
And the week before.
And the week before.
he was replacing that man.
Yep. So Scott Hall says, look, to mess with you, we brought out a bogus imposter. And nobody knows about that better than us. I laughed. So Sting never says anything the whole time. They all make their pitches. And finally Sting says, that's the fake Sting. You get what you pay for. The real Sting may or may not be in your price range, but the only thing for sure about Sting is nothing's for sure. And he walks out, and those are the last words he said in the ring for Lord knows how long.
The WCW announcers were excited that Sting had not joined the NWO. The NWO was very hopeful that Sting was going to join them. They were, in fact, ripping off WWE's their real-life storyline with Brett.
They were actually.
Sting is Brett.
That is true. And the most forgiving, kind-hearted wrestler in all the world, NWO Sting, he then celebrated with his friends who would let him get killed,
Well, it's part of the plan.
I guess.
He'd be repackaged as NWO. I don't know.
Main event was supposed to be Chris Benoit versus Randy Savage.
Dang it.
That probably would have been a pretty good match.
It would have been way better than what we got for a main event segment.
That's true. Savage comes out, and much like Sting, he is not dressed to wrestle. He is clad head to toe in black leather.
They say it's his street clothes. Let's talk about them. He is dressed head to toe in leather fringe and a black cowboy hat,
If you want to know what he's wearing,
John Lennon glasses.
go watch Bon Jovi's Dead or Alive, the video. He's got John's jacket, John's cowboy hat, and John's leather pants on.
Can we get a more modern reference we could go look up?
Actually, no one has worn this outfit since.
True.
Point
It's
is,
ridiculous.
but it's the Macho Man.
It is.
What, you want jeans and a t-shirt?
There is literally nothing else I can imagine Macho Man wearing.
No.
He's a
He looks like a giant crow.
He's a lunatic in Fringe.
Sting was the crow, but Savage looked like a legit crow.
A crow. Not the crow. A crow.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what he was doing there because he clearly was not going to wrestle, but Bischoff ambushes him again.
This
I-
is Bischoff.
I apologize for last week's video. To make up for it, I have another video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what this was, cut to, I guess, Hollywood. They're on the set of Three Ninjas.
Yeah.
And there is Hulk Hogan with hair.
Yes.
Obviously, for this movie, they cannot have a bald Hulk Hogan. They had to put some kind of toupee on him.
And it is true. I have never seen a bald man
Yeah.
who was given hair, either through the magic of Hollywood or a hair transplant or whatever, who, after receiving hair, didn't just look older. He looked
Frail.
20 years older.
Yeah.
He looked so ancient. 43 years old.
So he explains that the NWO has taken over production of the movie. The Giant comes over to make sure the director stays out of his way, and now the Giant's the director, and Hogan says he's the producer.
When you listen to Vinny explain this, everybody, just
I don't-
trust me. It's so much worse.
Yes.
This was straight out of Thunder. It was straight out of Nitro.
In Paradise.
Yeah, yeah.
It was so bad. This was the worst storyline I think I've seen in the entire time we've been watching the show.
So the gimmick is Hogan is ordering Liz to cut a promo for Savage into the camera and convince the Macho Man that she still loves him, even though it's a lie. Last week, I said that video was the best acting of Liz's career. This
Was the worst.
wasn't.
She was so bad.
So they go back to Hulk's trailer.
She doesn't want to do it, is the key.
Yeah.
He's trying to force her to do this video. She doesn't want to do the video. Overacting. He sends her back to the trailer. He goes in the trailer to yell at her, who's filming in the trailer?
I don't know.
There was 2 cameras in the trailer.
What is happening?
The
don't
2
know.
camera shoot in the trailer.
I don't know. This was not very good. And finally, Hogan gives up. And so they go back outside the trailer. And now it's just Hogan and Giant being Hogan and Giant, cutting a promo into the camera at Savage.
We're supposed to believe that Hulk Hogan is so powerful that he has taken over the production of Three Ninjas Go to Splash Mountain, or whatever the stupid movie was. Can you believe that? Think about this.
Yes, actually.
How does this help the movie?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you had any interest in seeing this movie, and suddenly you see a behind-the-scenes documentary that Hulk Hogan and the Giant have taken over production, and they're shooting videos with Liz, and they mention Liz as a cameo. Think about that.
You get to see Miss Elizabeth act.
Now I know and watch this movie.
They tell her to stand over there and be pretty, and she can't.
Yes.
The storyline was god-awful. And then Hogan promised to see Randy Savage in Vegas.
His big line was, I'm going to go give her some acting lessons, and she's thinking about me, not you. So they go back to the arena. Bischoff says, Randy Savage, your thoughts. just like Devin from NXT.
Who's been fired, by the way.
I know.
Oh.
And Savage doesn't say anything for a long time.
Bischoff says to him, this proves that she's real, no matter what the Hulkster says.
And you could see,
Like, what?
you could see behind Savage's glasses, he's weeping. He's got tears rolling down his face.
I did too when I watched this video.
Yeah, it was that bad.
So Savage stares at the screen for a long time. He's got his sunglasses on, doesn't say anything, and he turns to walk away. Bischoff says, well, I apologize to Chris Benoit, no match for you. Apologize to all you fans, no main event. And then Savage returns. He has something to say.
And Bischoff says, do you have thoughts?
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts.
Savage says he has learned that friendships can be fragile and relationships can be fragile. And Eric, you and I both know business can be fragile. Even marriage
Even marriage
can be fragile. And Hulk Hogan, life is also fragile. And then he leaves, having apparently threatened to murder a man on live television.
He has threatened to kill Hulk Hogan. That is your go-home angle.
Yes, everyone tune in Sunday night for Halloween Havoc when Randy Savage, perhaps with a gun or a knife, kills Hulk Hogan.
The go-home show for Hell in a Cell is Brock Lesnar went on Steve Austin's podcast to talk about the size of his truck and guns and how he doesn't give a shit about anything. He just wants to get paid. And here, the go-home for Halloween Havoc is Randy Savage training to kill, end the life of Hulk Hogan. That's serious business.
One of these things is not like the other.
One of these things is not like the other. That is true. It's Nitro, everybody.
Then we got the seventh man. This Indian fella. They did not have graphics.
Mahabali Shira.
I was not going to try to spell it, nor was going to look it up. So he gets to the ring and he's punching everyone, and his music's still playing like he's the Indian New Jack. And then, after a while, he stops, and he folds his arms, and he does a wacky dance.
The Shira Shake. The Shira Shake. The Shira Shake. This is awesome. Is doing the Shira Shake. Shira Shake. The Shira Shake. Hashtag Shira Shake.
All right, so he's in the ring. He goes to throw a punch while Shira is doing the Shira Shake. And Shira stops the man and says, I'm doing my dance. You should dance with me. And Anderson says, all right.
The Shira Shake.
Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake. Shira Shake. It's doing the Shira
Oh,
Shake.
more.
What happened?
What was that?
Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake. Hashtag Shira Shake.
And he folds his arms and he does the same little dance. And then a second man, we'll say it was Eli Drake, he goes to throw a punch, and Shira says, no. Shake with me. And Eli says, cool. And he starts shaking too. And it leads to all, I believe there are 6 men in the ring at this point, and they're all standing there with their arms folded, bebopping back and forth. Can't be true. Couldn't take anymore. This was cringeworthy. I was ashamed of myself. I was ashamed for these men in the ring. I don't want to spend my time that is left watching men do the Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake. The Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake.
Makes the whole
Shira
match worth
Shake.
it. Is doing the Shira Shake. Shira Shake. The Shira Shake.
Shira Shake.
Hashtag Shira Shake.
And you at least had the theory, maybe he's hypnotizing.
Yeah, that's my theory. I think he's hypnotizing.
Well, we did fine, except at one point, Aiden stopped dancing and just punched him.
Well, you know, the spell doesn't last forever.
This is the moment. So, you're on your own. But point is, this was so bad. It was so bad.
I don't know who's gurgling
By the
there
way-
in the background. All right, everyone, that's the Shira Shake. It went another minute.
You cut me off. You cut me off like I was a wild man.
I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go another minute. Hey, that was awesome.
That was better than the Retro Raw.
Now, I believe Joanne sent that. I don't know if it was my computer or if there was a glitch in the middle of it. But that was a 5-star. Maybe I'll play the whole entire thing for Granny on Thursday. The Thanksgiving edition of the show. Shira Shake.
The Shira Shake.
Thanksgiving on Thursday, you say?
Whatever. I'm giving thanks for Halloween.
So we watched Nitro. They showed, or talked about Roddy Piper making his debut at the end of Halloween Havoc, including a still shot of Hogan's epic freakout when Piper came out. That was great. Juventud Guerrera versus Steven Regal.
You know what's funny about the Hogan freakout? At the end of the show, Bischoff said, I'll try and get you footage of that freakout. We're running low on time. Where were you, dude?
I don't know.
You played at the beginning of the show.
I don't know.
Your show!
So speaking of historic moments in the Monday Night Wars, this match featured the very first shot of Sting hiding in the rafters.
That's right.
Or at least a luxury box. He looked pretty comfortable. So he's up there. There's NWO dweebs marching through the crowd with their signs. Six is with them. He cuts a promo in the middle of the match.
You didn't even mention the match.
I did.
Did he?
Regal and Guerrera.
Huh.
And they were annoyed by all this tomfoolery. And Six brags about all the titles his crew had won. He encourages Sting to join up. Then he just left. The match finally had a chance to happen.
I was laughing, thinking, look at the job this guy's got. All he does every week is he stands in the crowd with a camcorder. He never wrestles. Although he did vow here to win the Cruiserweight title. So I guess he will be wrestling at some point.
See, if you're talking about men who had figured out great jobs in this segment, Sting hid in the rafters and didn't talk for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And got paid a lot.
He had to watch a show all week.
I guess that's true. So, Hoovy is running wild. He misses a 450 splash. Regal rolls out of the way. Hoovy goes splat. And Regal pops up to his feet and pumps his fists in celebration. Ha-ha! I moved! That made me laugh. And then he won with a Regal stretch. And the whole segment was just a mess with too much going on. And then it got better. Shivani goes to interview Regal, but apparently Regal did not get the memo. He just walked away the other direction. So Shivani talks about Sting for a while. As soon as Sting is mentioned and shown on camera again, he realizes he is on TV and he leaves. And they went to break. It was a live TV moment.
And Tony said, when we come back, we'll try to speak with William Regal.
Hey, they may have tried.
They failed.
They failed.
Regal's like, I'm done.
I love Juventude's high spots. He's a really good high spot guy. He's a really good high flyer, but then
He sucks.
On stupid things like whipping Regal from corner to corner, he doesn't even take 2 steps out towards the middle before the whip. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't get on him for that because that's your lucha corner to corner whip.
It looks so bad, but then a buddy of mine said he's pretending to fight Regal like anybody's going to buy that.
Well, yeah, he sucked. Like, his high flying was good, but everything else was horrible. And Regal just...
he outclassed him.
Well, he just held on to him. He was so trying to feed him into a reversal and feed him into this reversal and guide him through the match. All who he could do was flips.
All right, enough of that.
Right man won.
Best t-shirt commercial ever aired by our new favorite tag team, the Faces of Fear. So they're standing there.
I told you weeks ago.
You were right. You figured it out long before I did, but you were correct. So it's Ming and the Barbarian. They're wearing Nitro shirts. They are standing next to each other. They are grunting. They are shouting in whatever language they natively speak. They are slapping each other on the chest and shoulders. They're being wild men. And we get subtitles of what they said. And here is what the subtitles said. Take it from us, the Faces of Fear. These are trendy shirts.
I'm sure that is an exact translation.
That's what the subtitle said. They're 100% cotton, and the colors stay vibrant wash after wash. And they feel great. Of course, one size fits all. So buy the shirt. Ha 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 ha.
Are you telling me that the Face of Fear had a shirt that they only made in one size?
Apparently. Only Ming sized.
Welcome to the 90s.
They just said one
Everybody
size
wore
fits all.
baggy clothes.
I guess.
These men are great.
Oh, they are. They're tremendous. They showed highlights of Lex Luger versus Arn Anderson at Havoc, with the ref getting, as Tony Schiavone called it, bumped. And Lex took the opportunity to work on over with a chair. He got the win with the torture rack, but he refused to release the hold after the match, and he sent Arn to the hospital. And this whole thing, mostly from memory, I know, it was such a great storyline and payoff, and should have been a much bigger deal on Nitro. It was buried for other stupid crap. On that note, DDP versus Mike Enos.
Yeah, Mike Enos here had a match with Diamond Dallas Page.
This man has a job.
This is not a bad match. It was nothing better than Freddie Joe Floyd versus
No, exactly.
the Portuguese
it
Man
was
of
every
War.
bit as good as the real Double J versus Al Sincere.
Whatever match it was, but DDP hits the diamond cutter. Now keep in mind, DDP has been diamond cutting men week after week after week. And every time he hits the move, the fans go crazy because the diamond cutter, the RKO, is a cool move that comes out of nowhere, much like the Stone Cold Stunner. So this week, he hits a move and Tony Schiavone is baffled. Why are they cheering for DDP? Are they cheering for Dallas Page? Why?
This one was a little bit different. Enos had him on his shoulder like he was going to do a power slam, and Dallas hooks his feet on the top rope, which causes Enos to lose balance, and he flips over and hits the diamond cutter.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That was DDP's deal. Everything was a diamond cutter out of nowhere, much like today's RKO out of nowhere.
Honestly, exactly the same.
And that is why I could not figure out why Tony Schiavone was baffled as to why people were cheering this cool diamond cutter out of nowhere.
Maybe because he hits his move, and then he wins.
Every single week.
And you know what? Again, in the case of Diamond Dallas Page, if scripting your matches bell to bell results in having a passable, good match with Mike Enos,
There you go.
more power to you, dude.
So the other key to this is as the match was going on, Hall and Nash appeared in the crowd, and they were cheering for Page, and when he won, they held up the Diamond Cutter sign because they have a history with him and they are recruiting him. They showed clips of Dean Malenko beating Rey Mysterio Jr. for the Cruiserweight title at Havoc. And then Dean Malenko came out. So here he is, the new Cruiserweight champion, the guy who is the best of these small wrestlers. He specializes in fast-moving matches with constant action. And his opponent to celebrate his new title win is Jim Powers.
It was Jim. You know what, though? Jim Powers was a good wrestler. He was a solid professional grappler. And they had a good match.
Because Dean Malenko was awesome.
That is true.
Powers was capable.
I wanted to give Jim Powers some credit right here, because I always put over Dean Malenko, so I thought I'd give his... For example, Regal and Hoovy. Hoovy brought nothing to the table.
No.
This man here, Jim Powers, he brought something to the table.
Fair enough. So they showed AC Green in the crowd. He's a pro basketball player from that era. He's wearing an NWO shirt. Shivani says, "Oh, hey, there's AC Green from the NBA. What a huge star. We're so happy to have him here enjoying our show." And Zbyszko's like, "Did you notice he's wearing an NWO shirt?" Shivani says, No, I didn't see that.
You know,
and they go to another shot, and sure enough, he's got the NWO shirt on. And Tony's like, "Oh, look at that."
the funniest part about it is, I noticed him in the NWO shirt earlier, because they're all in the front row.
Yeah, and
there's 4 dudes in the front row,
yeah.
and you can't help but notice they're in NWO shirts. So later, he stands up wearing the shirt, and somehow Tony doesn't see the shirt.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, it's AC Green." Last time that guy's getting comps to a WCW event.
AC Green from the Phoenix Suns, at least 6'3", 6'4".
He looked like he was about 6'8".
I said at
Way
least.
bigger than that.
I said at least, and Tony didn't notice him.
No, just a fan.
I predict Vinny.
He was a huge fan.
Look up his physically, yes. Look
AC
up-
Green, 6'9".
There you go.
I was close, 6'8".
I said
was-
at least.
One, maybe 2 guys the entire show taller than him.
I know a tall man when I see one.
They're all tall to you.
I was going to say, they're all,
Yeah.
every one of them.
All right, so let's see.
They're all the same size when they're on their back.
Is that the way you like him?
I was going to make a joke about Kevin Owens' gut again.
I'll talk about his gut later on the show tonight.
All right. So Psychosis came out on the ramp to watch. Malenko, and I did right here, Malenko got a very good match out of Powers. And then Powers hit a Powers Slam. I'm going to trademark that name.
He named his Powers Slam after himself. You couldn't even come up with a name for the Pump Handle Slam?
I named it that. Oh, I see, yeah. Nick Patrick chose...
That should be a contest. What should we have called Vinny's Pump Handle Slam
No.
finisher?
I can already see where this is going. And I'm not a fan.
I like this one.
So anyway...
Write that down.
I won't forget.
Nick Patrick, rather than count the 3, he chooses to argue with Teddy Long. Powers protests. Malenko pins him with an O'Connor roll and disappears. And then for the 493rd week in a row, we get Teddy and Nick arguing. Please do something new with the storyline.
Man, short attention span. This is the way things used to be done. Slow build.
There's a fine line between a slow build and overkill.
You know what I love about this Nick Patrick thing, besides his stupid neck brace, is Nick Patrick is arguing with the referee, or he's arguing with Teddy Long, who was a referee. They're arguing with each other, and his back is turned to the ring, and he's not seeing Jim Powers getting the win. And the fans are furious. Now, later in wrestling history, we would see the McMahons acting as heel referees in matches. Never got anything near the kind of heat this got. And I keep trying to put into words why this works. And I think The key is when the fans think they have it figured out, but it has not been hammered home to them. Like, as a viewer, you're pretty damn sure that Nick Patrick is on the take. But there's never been, like, the video footage backstage of Hulk Hogan physically handing money to Nick Patrick to prove it. It's only a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence. So every viewer thinks that this guy is on the take, but it's never been proven. And that makes them even more angry than if it were blatantly obvious that this guy was a heel referee trying to screw all of the baby faces. It's the doubt that is the heat.
Well said. Jeff Jarrett versus Ricky Morton.
Before that, they announced on WCW Saturday Night, which unfortunately is not available on the WWE Network. This Saturday, it will be the Rock and Roll Express versus the Faces of Fear. That is the match that started this, Vinny. That is a match that started the turnaround for the Faces of Fear on Nitro. When he booted the hell out of poor Robert Gibson, the back of his head, and almost killed him. Knocked his eyes straight.
I got very, very excited a week or two ago when they were doing the face.
That was for Craig.
Took me a minute. When they did the Faces of Fear versus the Fantastics.
Oh.
And it wasn't much. They were just two guys out there getting hit. So, Jeff Jarrett versus Ricky Morton.
Thank God. This was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the match was great. The Jeff Jarrett, and he's only been around like a month in WCW, and I'm totally confused about whether I'm supposed to cheer or boo him.
Right.
Because he comes out, he's supporting Ric Flair and the Horsemen, who are heels, but he stands up for WCW, who are babyfaces. He wants to fight the Giant, who's a heel. But he comes out here and acts like a complete cocky ass and wrestles like a cowardly heel. Mm-hmm. It's bewildering to me.
He begged off at one point.
He hid behind the referee.
He hid behind the ref. He worked complete heel the whole time.
Yeah.
And then got cheered.
And he got cheered anyway.
Let me tell you what I loved about this match. This is insider stuff. This is stuff that, well, I'll just say, wrestling used to be that you would take your own bump and you'd never feel the other guy. The other guy would never touch you. Mm-hmm. If you went to slam him, he'd post on your leg and if you're taking the slam, you post on the guy's leg, you go up and you go down.
Yeah.
The guy's not even slamming you. You go up and you go down. There was a spot here, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was somebody getting necked on the top rope or something like that. But nowadays it's like you pick the dude up by the legs and you fall backwards and you drop this poor bastard over the top rope and it's up to him to protect himself. And if he doesn't, he's in big trouble. Here it was like somebody went under the guy and he kind of lifted and the other guy jumped and necked himself on the top rope and took the bump. This was two old school Southern style guys having a good match where nobody got hurt, nobody did anything dangerous, nobody touched each other.
Yeah.
And they had a great match. This does not exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
It existed, actually, I take that back, last Saturday when they did Jerry Lawler versus Terry Funk. I bet you anything that was the same kind of match. This was my kind of wrestling.
Go back and read Mick Foley's book about being punched by Terry Funk.
Okay, maybe that's a
when
bad
Law
example.
was punching, yes.
Yes. But if you just watch this match, everything that everybody did, everybody was in control of themselves.
Yes.
They were not putting their lives in somebody else's hands and praying. I thought this match was so awesome.
You're quite right, and just sitting back and watching it, it would have fit right in on Raw these days.
Sure.
It went about 5 or 6 minutes. It was very spot intensive. It was I don't want to say choreographed, but they did a lot of spots.
And you know what? Ricky Morton, I don't know a whole lot about the guy, but I'll bet you anything he probably wasn't that guy who never smoked and never drank and never did anything crazy. But you know what? Ricky Morton is still out there wrestling today.
That's right.
In his 60s.
Yeah.
Because of a style like this. And no one can come to me and say, well, Brian, you know what? Ricky Morton never had good matches.
No.
Oh, yeah? Ricky Morton had awesome matches. But this was the way that wrestling used to be, where you wrestled for longevity. You wrestled so that you could get up and work again the next day. I won't go on and on, but this was awesome.
So Jeff wins with the figure 4. After the match, the Giant appears in the crowd for, I was going to say a promo, but this was the boring, raw 20-minute monologue just in the crowd in the middle of Nitro.
I was furious because they cut off Jarrett's music.
That too. So he talks and he talks and he talks and he talks and he says, the Horsemen are running scared and I'm going to chokeslam you. And by the time it ends, keep in mind he's up in the, way in the upper deck in the stairwell talking. And he finishes his promo and the camera starts to zoom out and zoom out and zoom out and zoom out. And you realize the camera has been in front of Jarrett and Shivani the entire time. That was really cool. And so Jarrett responds. He dares the Giant to come fight and talks about the big night he had at Halloween Havoc. And this time I was completely confused. Who won that match?
I think it was a DQ.
Because Giant's got the belt.
I think it was a DQ.
Jarrett's talking about, so did he steal the belt then? He didn't win it?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I was confused. And then Jarrett got a promo on literally everyone. The NWO, the Horsemen, Sting, Roddy Piper, all of them. I still have no idea whether he's a face or a heel. It was very weird.
Well, why don't you look up Halloween Havoc 96 while I tell my story right here and find out who won that match.
All right.
Anyway, the point of this is Jeff Jarrett wins a match, and I'm waiting the whole show to hear his music. After his entrance, of course. And they, as soon as they hit the first note, they cut it off because Giant's talking. So after Giant's done, they go back to Jarrett, and I'm like, okay, cut your promo, buddy, and then they're going to play your music. He cuts his promo, and then they just go to commercial. They never gave us the payoff for Jeff Jarrett. His music. Who won, Vinny?
The Giant defeated Jeff Jarrett by disqualification. And in the notes here it says Jeff Jarrett was disqualified after Ric Flair gave the Giant a low blow.
Cool.
Does not have a time of match.
Doesn't have how long the match went?
It has times for some of them. It's like whoever was writing this Wikipedia article just forgot sometimes. Like I can tell you Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio wrestled for 18 minutes and 32 seconds.
Huh.
Six and Chris Jericho went 9:49, but under Giant and Jeff Jarrett it just says N/A.
That's weird. Why is the time not applicable?
Not available.
Not available. How's it not available? You didn't have a watch?
Of the two, it makes more sense. High Voltage versus the Amazing French Canadians.
Oh, here we go. So this Jean-Pierre Lafitte. What a huge fat belly this guy had. Also French Canadian.
He uses a lot of the same moves Kevin Owens does.
He didn't wear a t-shirt. He wore a singlet. Now granted, he looked horrible at it. But still, he wore a singlet. Because he was a grappler.
At the end of your little speech there.
That's all I had.
Do you know, did he have a bad eye for real or what?
I've looked at his Wikipedia page says, yeah, he like lost an eye as a kid or something.
Really? Because he ended up in WWE.
I'll look it up right now.
Was it later or before this as
before,
the pirate?
Before this, he was the pirate.
It was before this that he was a pirate.
And then he was in TNA for a bit, wasn't he?
He did something incredibly stupid in TNA.
That's right. He dove off the post to
He
the
did,
floor.
I'm going to do a dive from the post to the ramp. No one catch me, and I'll land on my back.
That's right. What an idiot. He's no Ricky Morton.
No.
High Voltage. Just think about these names, everybody. High Voltage versus the Amazing French Canadians.
Wikipedia says Willette lost his right eye at the age of 12 when a friend accidentally shot him in the eye with a pellet gun.
Wow.
He's worn a glass eye since then, or an eye patch in the ring.
How about that? Bischoff kicked off this hour, and
match.
he had a lot of news to get into, and he mentioned that Savage is gone. His status was unknown. Remember we were watching all those shows, and we were like, Savage is taking such a beating that it is inconceivable that he couldn't win. Well, it's not inconceivable when your contract is expiring and you have not come to new terms.
Well, there's that.
So that's where he is right now. He's in a limbo.
Uh-huh.
But he wrestled the night before.
Yeah, it was like his last night.
That was his last night.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So, I may be the only one here. In fact, I'm sure in this room I am the only one. The French Canadians come out and they cut a promo on the Coyote heads in the crowd, and they say, you should show respect to a team from Quebec. Because the Quebec hockey team had just moved to Arizona and named themselves the Coyotes. I see. Uh-huh. So,
I thought you were going to say you're the only one in the room that liked the Nasty Boys promo, because that would certainly be true.
I don't even know what to say about that.
We'll get to that.
So, the match was short. I had some reverse buffering going on throughout this, as if my Xbox was rejecting the match and trying to get over with as quickly as possible. Just something. It would skip ahead 2 or 3 seconds constantly.
I wish mine did
I
that.
swear it was not me. It was just the feed.
You missed nothing. They won with the... Or actually,
They were going to win when the Nasty Boys came through the crowd and attacked.
Right.
That's right.
The French Canadians disappeared. And the Nasties cut a promo. What did I write down about it? I think I lied when I wrote this down. I got more out of it than I actually did. But what I wrote was, they cut a promo about how Hollywood Hogan had invited them to join the NWO, but it was all a lie. They talked about how nasty they were for a while. They quoted Michael Buffer and said they were ready to rumble.
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It went on way too long. It sucked. And the most notable thing is, because they're not NWO, and they've turned their backs on WCW to join the NWO before they were turned down, they are considering themselves men who don't belong anywhere. And they said, which, by the way, what a faction. The men who don't belong anywhere.
MWBA.
Imagine the shirts. But in talking about how they're men who don't belong anywhere, they make sure to compare themselves to Sting and Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Yes.
Men who should surely be spoken about in the same breath as the Nasty Boys, Knobs and Sags.
Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Jimmy Graffiti.
This was great.
I had more reverse buffering here, and I actually got pissed.
Oh, man.
I wanted to watch I saw some of it. What I saw was great, but I wanted to watch Rey Mysterio Jr. wrestle Jimmy Graffiti.
Jimmy's gear was so unbelievably awful. It's the same gear, but it was worse this week. I don't even know why. Ray was so great before he gained 50 pounds.
Yeah.
He was so agile, flying all over the place.
Knees were healthier.
And he looked great. When he gained all that weight, it's not like he suddenly looked like Lex Luger. He looked like a chunky Ray Jr. That's not an improvement. At least he was lean and athletic here. Now, granted, it was 1996, and it's not 2015 where... What do they say now? Strong is the new skinny, or whatever, on all those girls' shirts. It's not like that in 1996. You had to be big. So this athletic body was a negative. But looking at it through 2015 eyes, what the hell did he put on all this weight for? What a mistake.
Well, because of who his boss was going to be.
Jimmy Graffiti did a flip dive off the apron. Looked like he almost broke his own neck.
He did what X did, only he was smart and only did it off the apron. And I'm not sure Ray tried to catch him, he's just too small to do it or what, but Jimmy went splat.
I don't think Ray tried to catch Jimmy Graffiti.
And Bischoff noted, that guy's way too big to be taking bumps like that.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. So they did a bunch of stuff, and Ray won with what would later be called the West Coast Pop.
It was fun.
It was fun.
It's funny. Jimmy Del Rey in WWE, it seemed like his style was completely different to what it is here. Am I way off base there?
It was different.
He was in WWE, he was still a Smoky Mountain heel tag team guy.
So he was a Southern wrestler.
Yeah. And in the year or two since, he learned to do some dives.
Yeah.
He did some flips and got horrible gear.
and fatter.
And a hideous haircut and got very fat.
All of this is great, by the way. We need more wrestlers like this.
This was great for Jimmy Graffiti, the character. It was not great for Jimmy Del Rey.
Well, that's true. Lee Marshall did the road report with the first obligatory Weasel joke. Obligatory? How do you say that word?
You got it right second time.
Obligatory.
Obligatory. Oh, boy. Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit. I have seen hundreds of Chris Benoit matches in my life. Maybe close to 1,000, but certainly hundreds. And the number of bad Chris Benoit matches, they can count on two hands easily. Well, this is one of them.
I don't know if I could call it a bad match. It was just a boring match that told a story that we didn't really need to see in this match.
The reason they were really handicapped because they were supposed
because the storyline was they were handicapped.
Yeah, they were supposedly both injured. Eddie's ribs and Benoit's shoulder. Mm-hmm. And so they took turns working on each other's injury, and it didn't come out really good.
Yes, granted, there were circumstances. They were basically they were playing the parts of two men who should not be wrestling. Now go have a match.
Exactly.
And that's what they did. So one guy would hit a move, and then both men would writhe around in pain. This went on for a while. It got a little boring. It got a lot boring, and it just kept going. And keep in mind, with the in the storyline of the match, a very fast finish would have made more sense. Because both guys came in video game terms, they came in with a half-empty life bar. So they should have been ready. Yeah, Brian's giving me the look. But they should have been much closer to defeat the moment they stepped through the ropes. Instead, they wrestled slow and slow and slow and slow. And eventually, Woman took the ref. Mongo whacked Eddie with the briefcase, and Benoit pinned him. It sucked.
Let's talk about the positives. First off, Benoit comes to the ring, and he's all taped up. And he gets in the ring, and suddenly he gets this diabolical scowl on his face, and he goes right up to Nick Patrick, and I believe he says, "You better not screw me." It's like, well, why doesn't everybody do that? The other great thing is, at the end of the match, Woman takes the referee, and Mongo gets in the ring. Now, Mongo has got this gimmick where he's got this horseman briefcase. Mongo was a football star. He was a Super Bowl champion, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
He was a tough guy. And so, this was 1996, before they had impact testing and concussion protocols. And I'm sure in Mongo's mind, the deal was, I'm going to hit you in the head with this briefcase, and I'm going to swing it as hard as I can. And if you complain, you're a pussy. Eddie Guerrero was not a fool. And so, Eddie Guerrero appeared to me to have come up with a great plan. He knew that this football guy was going to have to hit him with the briefcase at the end of the match. And so he came up with this idea, which was, all right, Mongo, you're going to swing the briefcase at my head. I will put my arms up to block, and when I raise my hands, you hit me in the stomach, and then I'll be pinned. Because that means you don't have to be hit in the head with the briefcase. Well, if you've watched this, go back and watch how Eddie's plan turned out. Mongo goes to hit him in the head. Eddie lifts both arms up to block, and Mongo, with the edge of this briefcase, does not hit him in the stomach, but instead, he, in an uppercut motion, drives the edge of this metal briefcase right into Eddie Guerrero's rib cage. He probably would have been better off being hit in the head. Mongo hit him so hard, Eddie falls down, he's pinned. If I didn't know better, I would think this might have been his last match. There's no getting around Mongo hitting you with the briefcase is the moral of the story.
No, and we will have more to say about that later. Shivani interviewed Nick Patrick.
Oh, God.
Yes.
What show was Dave watching?
I don't know. Patrick was joined by his attorney, Alan Sharp.
Real guy, by the way.
And if that name sounds familiar to you, he worked in WCW's PR department. He's playing a lawyer here.
He was every geek. I don't know the guy in real life, but
Sure, he's a nice guy.
I'm sure he's a great guy. But how many shows were we at that we worked on where some random non-wrestling personality got a chance to play a character?
Yeah.
And so they've got to overact. This guy had a chance to play bad guy. And so he didn't turn up to 11. He turned it up to 111. This was infuriating.
So the gimmick was Jericho had attacked Patrick at Halloween Havoc, and this ruined Patrick's ability to ref the main event fairly. They went on for a while, and Jericho comes out in street clothes. He says, "There's nothing wrong with your neck, Nick Patrick, and I know you're working for the NWO." And Teddy Long comes out. He says, "You guys are scam artists." And they start talking about slander, and it's all just going nowhere. There's no end in sight for any of this. And eventually Bischoff just starts talking over it, and they start playing the music, and they fade to black, and the thing was still going on. That sucked. That was worse than anything on Raw. Whew. Booker T versus Lex Luger. Bischoff noted that maybe Sting could not be trusted, and if so, then maybe Lex Luger could be the leader we need. He's coming off a big win over Arn Anderson. He might be the guy. Colonel Parker cut an inset promo. I swear to God, I did not understand one word of him.
Well, I at least got out of it that he's trying to explain to us that Harlem Heat, him, and Sherry are all on the same page. Now, beyond that, I have no idea.
In all seriousness, when the Faces of Fear cut their promo with subtitles, I could understand what the Barbarian was saying better than what Colonel Parker was saying. Something about t-shirt fit. I got that out of it. So this is a weird match because Lex Luger was the babyface, Booker T was the heel, but Lex came out and was dominant and aggressive, like he was setting Booker T up for a comeback. Booker T starts throwing kicks. Bischoff goes into karate nerd mode, and Lex dodges the Harlem
Where's Glacier
Hangover.
been?
I don't know.
Who cares?
Only have 2 hours.
I care because he spent so much time getting him there.
No, that's
and now
part.
he's vanished.
That is part of what makes the Glacier story so awesome.
Did he melt?
I imagine people on a pier watching out into the ocean, and Glacier slowly drifted by, and then it just went
And
the
out
other
of
way
sight.
and out of sight.
So
Should call him a comet. Every 83 years he comes by, does a match, and then he's gone again.
that'd be a great gimmick.
That should be your new gimmick, Vinny.
I'm not gonna make it that long. So Lex dodges the Harlem Hangover. He starts to go for the torch rack, and he is distracted. And they cut to a camera, and hundreds of yards away.
It was the wall, brother.
It may have been the wall. No, it was not the wall. It was Sting. Sting is at the top of the stairs in the stands, way out there. And Lex in a sea of thousands of people.
He's
In
in
the
the
middle-
entranceway.
Yeah, in the middle of doing his move.
Yes, about to hit his finish and win a match.
If you're going into a stadium, he was in one of the entranceways to walk down the aisle to your seat.
Yeah, it's like he just come back
There
from
is
getting popcorn.
No way you could have seen Sting
Unless
from
you're
the
Lex
center
Luger.
of the building.
Apparently, the only muscles Lex has more powerful than his pecs are his eyeballs. He saw this little dot of light in the corner and said, "That's Sting!" And he put Booker T down, and he went to confront his friend, and Sting left, and Lex got counted out. And as this whole thing
God, Lex just was like just an idiot.
as this whole thing is playing out, Bischoff says, and this is a quote, "This is obviously a stretch of the imagination."
I mean,
You're
come
telling me.
on. He's about to do his move, and he sees Sting 1,000 yards away. And he decides, well, I could win, or I could just go talk to him right now. And he chooses the latter.
So the finish was, they replayed Roddy Piper's promo from the pay-per-view. It was about 5 minutes long. He claimed to be just as big an icon in wrestling as Hulk Hogan was. False. Said he was just as big a movie star. Probably true. In fact, definitely true. Said he was a multi-millionaire himself. Been fighting since age 15. Been stabbed 3 times. Hogan cuts him off and says, "Look, that's fine. We ran neck and neck. Let's call it a truce." Piper says, "Nope, not done yet." He starts talking about WrestleMania. How all the people came to see Hogan, but they also came to see Piper. He basically explained that he was a great heel. He did all these nefarious acts, including, quote, "having my way with Liberace." He said Hogan had never beaten him, demanded Hogan shake his hand, and admit that the people had made Hogan, not the other way around. So Hogan says, "All right, dude, you're a big star too." They had a handshake. And Piper starts to leave. Hogan makes a joke about his kilt. They start barking at each other for a while, and it ended.
This, for those of you that don't recall, this occurred after the main event of the Halloween Havoc main event. Hogan and Savage. And if you watch the promo, you'll see that Roddy comes out and he starts being Roddy, and then he just starts rambling. And he's rambling and rambling. And Hogan tries to cut him off and say, let's just cut to the chase right here. And what does Roddy do? Steps all over him, and he keeps rambling and rambling. Hogan is trying to get it back on track. Roddy is rambling. And the key to this is, Hogan was really trying to get the guy back on track because they were running out of pay-per-view time.
Yeah.
And in fact, all over the country, many cable outlets just shut it off in the middle of Roddy's rambling. That's why they showed the entire thing here at the end of the show.
Aha.
Because a lot of people didn't get a chance to see it. Because Roddy just cannot be contained
No.
as a shoot.
It was very clear watching this, they were not on the same page.
No.
At all. So they show this, and then back in the arena, Hogan and Ted DiBiase come out to rebut. Hogan demands his Hollywood spotlight. He runs down Randy Savage and his tiny Slim Jim. He promises to take care of Elizabeth.
This was such a raw 20-minute opening boring promo, but it was at the end of the show.
It really did. Yeah.
Can you imagine how many people would turn off the show if they did the 20-minute promo at the end of 3 hours of Raw?
Oh my God. I was actually just thinking that right now. As much as we complain about the 20-minute opening promo, if that was a 20-minute closing promo,
Worse.
that show would be dead.
Worse.
This sucked.
He's going on and on how he'd seen fear in Piper's eyes and Piper's smart enough to run off in his skirt. And DiBiase says, now we have all the gold. It's time for Hulk to entertain the fans. And suddenly Hollywood Hogan morphs back into Hulk Hogan. He's tearing his shirt. He's doing the ear cup. He's posing.
Now, DiBiase said, we've been wanting to do this for a while, but we were waiting for the right time. And now that we've got all of the championships, let's do it. Hogan, dance. They've been waiting for Hogan to celebrate now for months. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This promo sucked.
They said, well, they wanted to wait till they had all the gold.
Before he could celebrate?
I guess.
Before he could flex.
I don't
before he
know.
could shake his...
What a professional. He's got to achieve before he celebrates. All I know is this was the opposite of Raw. Raw was a terrible show, and then, as noted, the main event was great. And when the show was over, you were like, that was a fun Raw. This was a Nitro where we raved about the first half of the show, maybe even more, and then
That second hour was terrible.
it was so bad when the show was over, I was furious that I'd watched it.
I was here.
That's how bad this main event segment was.
Yeah.
But thankfully, everybody, we can wrap up today talking about an actual great professional wrestling match. The Powers of Pain versus Benoit and Mongo.
Before you do that,
Yes.
I actually did watch the main event of Savage and Hogan.
Why?
It was
Historic?
it was
I
actually
can't believe you do something so foolish.
it was actually a pretty fun match.
Oh, really? I heard Hogan wrestled the first 8 minutes wearing a wig.
Yes, he was wearing his wig and sunglasses.
Look at Vinny's face.
Okay, now I want to watch it.
This was great.
Hogan, you know how a few weeks ago we were talking about how heels don't want to act like buffoons?
Sure.
You know what I mean? When they get bumped, they don't want to look uncool.
Sure.
Hogan looked like the biggest doofus on the face of the earth getting bumped for everything Savage threw. At one point, he ended up with the wig in his own mouth after Savage pulled it off of his head.
Wow.
It was a great match. I giggled that Patrick got bumped, and Savage roughed him up, and yeah, it was a good match, man.
Huh.
It really was. It was fun.
All right, Vinny, you're going to watch it first, and then you tell me if I should watch it.
What?
Because you just said I need to watch it now.
Am I your canary now?
What does that mean?
Canary in a mine?
Yeah. If the canary's
What,
dead,
I'm gonna die?
Get out of the mine.
I might die. So you send me down to die first.
It's always been like that.
It's true. He's got a point, Vinny.
How is this new?
Anytime something new comes on, here, Vinny, try this.
All
Vinny,
right.
Vinny,
You got me there.
Drink
I won't
this.
call you a canary. I'll call you the enforcer of this horseman crew.
Don't try.
What a gimmick, the canary.
Canary.
That is a good.
Hey, it's better than Marty the Moth.
How so?
No, I just rewatched the. I think it was El Rey. They released the season 2. They called it the trailer, but it's really that 5-minute video that ended the last show of last season.
Oh, yeah.
Got me all excited again. Huge Underground's so great.
It
and,
is.
And Marty the Moth in that segment suddenly went from terrible to awesome.
All right, well, I'll take your word for it. But watch his match, Vinny, and let me know. Because I think Dave gave it a 1.25 stars.
It was bad.
That
Don't get
sounds
me
about
wrong.
right.
Don't get me wrong. It was bad, but it was highly entertaining.
I see. That's different. I may watch it if it's highly entertaining.
I know a good entertaining match.
Yeah.
The Powers of Pain.
Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael versus the Faces of Fear.
Did I not say that this match would rule?
Not only did it rule, but it ruled in exactly the manner you said it would.
Yes.
Mang and the Barbarian are tough mofos. Mm-hmm. Chris Benoit is also a tough mofo. And Steve McMichael is a tough mofo, but he's also out of his element.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the key. That was the key. So Mang and Mongo start.
Yeah.
First of all, they come out, and I don't know what's going on, but there was stalling by everyone for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I mean, both teams, the ref, the women involved, Jimmy Hart, everyone just kind of stood there for a while.
Well, I'm sure they were told you guys got 12 minutes, and then they all looked at Mongo and went, all right. Let's take our time.
All right. So Mang and Mongo start. and they're squaring off from across the ring, and from 12 feet away, Meng throws a kick.
Yeah.
And
It's called intimidating your opponent.
yes, I'm going to display my flexibility and striking distance. And he throws this kick, and I watched this like more than once trying to figure out if it was on purpose or not. Mongo, in fear of this kick, falls down. And I legit don't know if he was being in character and being so afraid of Meng's feet that he fell back in fear, or if he just tripped.
Or the wind.
Or the wind knocked him over.
The pressure of the kick knocked him on his butt.
So Meng is no-selling all of Mongo's offense. Just Mongo's throwing punches and chops, and Meng just stands there. And finally, Mongo could take no more, and he goes to the corner. He goes a 3-point stance and pops out with a flying shoulder block, and he explodes through Meng instead of flying through the air.
Chop block. Two of them.
No.
Chop block was later.
Oh,
This is a shoulder block.
This is totally clean.
And Meng jumped so high
Yes.
for this shoulder block.
It looked awesome, and then Mongo almost fell down throwing a stomp. Yeah. All I'd hoped for at this point in the match. So Barbarian and Benoit tag in, start wailing on each other. Benoit foolishly tries to headbutt a Polynesian. Paid the price. And then Mongo and Meng tagged back in, and then it really got great.
You know what I love about Chris Benoit and the Barbarian? The one thing about Chris Benoit was he always worked in such a way that in his mind, this is what wrestling would look like if it was real. Right?
Absolutely.
Yet he still, in his brain, knew that if I headbutt the Barbarian, it's going to hurt my head more.
Yeah.
I don't know why I found that so funny. Chris Benoit, of all people, selling his own head after headbutting a Samoan.
Yeah.
Man that
Or a
uses
Fijian.
a man that uses a headbutt off the top rope.
Yeah.
So Mongo and Meng tag back in.
Let me talk about this for a second.
Okay.
We had a shoot, much as I'd wanted. Meng and Mongo square off, and Meng he decided, all right, football fucker, let's have a sumo match.
Yes, Mongo said he went down in a 3-point stance.
Yes.
And Meng says, no.
You're in my world.
Yes.
So he squats down, he lifts his one leg and stomps, and he lifts his other leg and stomps, and he gets in the sumo stance. And then Mongo's like, all right. And Mongo stomps one foot, and he stomps his other foot, and he squats down, and they're squaring off with each other. Have you ever seen a real sumo match?
Yes.
This is exactly what it was. They go, and Meng just strikes him and runs him backwards into the turnbuckle.
Palm thrust, palm thrust, palm
This
thrust.
was great.
Meng was a sumo wrestler for a while.
Meng won.
Meng won the sumo contest. If any of you played Street Fighter and E Honda did the 100-hand slap, that's
Yes.
what Meng did here. And it was so awesome because Meng, as noted, was a sumo wrestler. He did the pose and he was very serious about it. Mongo did the sumo pose and was making a big joke out of it. Okay, I'll do your wacky little Japanese wrestling dance. Haha. And then Meng whipped his ass.
Lit him up.
Just whipped his ass. But then it got better because after getting his ass whipped, Mongo realized, okay, screw this. I'm going back to my roots. And he starts rolling back and forth doing some football agility drills, and then he starts running wild with shoulder blocks and chop blocks. He said, I'm gonna do what got me to this table. I'm gonna dance with what brought me here. And this got me thinking. Back in the day, every wrestler on the card had a different style.
Yes.
So every guy had different pacing, different moves. Just every guy was different. This is gone largely from wrestling now.
Dude, we've been talking about this forever. This
I
is why-
know, but it was so abundantly clear here. Mongo is a wrestler who does football moves. So that's what he did. That's what worked for him.
Yeah.
So eventually they cut him off with a double headbutt, which, considering we've already talked about the Polynesian headbutt, 2 of them should have been fatal. Benoit tags in, starts chopping the piss out of Meng. Meng shrugs them off because he's Meng.
Dude, Meng just stood there while Benoit was chopping him as hard as he could.
Don't care. Absolutely don't care. They hit him with their backdrop powerbomb combo. And there's a lot of teams that have done this where they're like, one guy will do the backdrop and sort of hold him there, and then the other person will grab them. When they did this move, Meng would throw the man, and Barbarian would grab him out of the air and powerbomb him.
Like a cat playing with a dead mouse.
Yeah. And as he grabs him for the powerbomb and then holds him there, you hear a woman screaming in terror. So Benoit gets powerbombed. They're working him over for a while. Barbarian does this top rope belly to belly. We've said this many times. I see it like every show, but we never gave them enough credit. Because I've seen other guys do top rope belly to bellies, but, you know, they stand face to face and you wrap his arms around the guy's chest or waist and use all of his body to throw this move. They get up on the top rope. Barbarian puts his hands like under Benoit's armpits. And just from there, I'm going to throw you backwards over my head.
Yeah.
And he did.
Well, part of it also is Chris Benoit was out of his mind.
Right.
And so when Barbarian went to throw him, Chris Benoit jumped as hard as he could, and he literally went corner to corner.
Yeah.
He was, no lie, he was about 18 inches away from the other turnbuckle.
Yeah. They hit a double top rope diving headbutt. Benoit's head should have popped like a water balloon. And then, this is amazing, Tony Schiavone became the first announcer I can recall to actually bring up the one save rule.
Yes.
And he said it used to be, the way he explained it, it used to be teams were allowed one save in a match, and after that one save, they would be disqualified. And now it's not enforced very often.
It's back.
Yes,
And it's a secret rule.
but it's a secret that none of the
but nobody
announcers can
knows.
discuss. It's the only time an announcer actually let the wrestling fans at home know what was going on.
Right.
So
Can you
way to go,
imagine-
Tony Schiavone.
Can you imagine, as a football fan, Vinny, as someone who covers it for a living, if there were secret NFL rules that they never told the fans about, but if every now and then they would enforce them?
Like batting the ball out of the end zone.
Yes.
You won't
So
understand,
some of these
Brian.
have come up, Brian. Well, not that anyone listening to this cares. The issue in the NFL is not secret rules; is that no one really knows what the rules.
Yeah,
mean.
that's different.
Yeah.
I'm talking, these are rules and they're secret.
Yeah. So they do the same finish on Nitro for the Horsemen, where there's a distraction, and Mongo hits someone with a briefcase, and then there's Ben. Now, you noted that Eddie Guerrero had a plan. Well, his plan was to not get hit in the head with a briefcase. Now, that's a sound plan for anyone. But when you are 24 hours out of watching Mongo hit Meng in the head with a briefcase,
Yeah.
you will move heaven and earth to avoid that hitting you in the head.
Not to mention, did you see when Meng hit Mongo with the briefcase?
Receipt.
I bet.
Mongo is flat on his stomach. There's nowhere for his head to go.
Yep.
And Meng lifts the briefcase high over his head, and he drives it into the back of Mongo's head.
He was aiming for the shoulder, but on purpose aiming for the back of his head, too.
I don't think Mongo moved after that, to be honest with
I
you.
don't either.
And he did it twice.
Yeah, they laid out Mongo. For storyline purposes, they had a spiked pile driver onto the briefcase. So this left Benoit alone as the Dungeon of Doom attacked, and Benoit had only ever been a heel to this point, but watching him make a 1-on-4 comeback, you're thinking, that's the best babyface in the world right there. He was awesome. But eventually he got cut off and massacred. And then Woman is begging the Dungeon of Doom to stop, and Sullivan vows, I'm going to show you I'm still the man. And this is going to get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're strongly building up the storyline that Woman and Sullivan are married, and now she's with Benoit.
And yeah.
I don't really want to interview Sullivan about this particular fact, but I would like to know what he was thinking. What was your plan, dude? Right?
I don't know.
Anyway. That match was awesome.
That match was awesome.
Was that match better than the main event?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just checking. Be hard-pressed to find a better match ever than that one right there. Meng and Barbarian against Benoit and Mongo. Halloween Havoc 1996, everybody. And apparently Ray and Dean Malenko went 18 minutes, but nobody watched that here?
No.
I'll bet that one was pretty good, too.
It may have been even better than this.
Impossible.
May have been better than Mongo.
Well, it was better than Mongo, but that's it.